And we get it rolling on the Krueg Show Friday night, July the 7th, 2023. Giants lose to the Rockies 5-2 to start the weekend series. The Giants are just not hitting right now. Not hitting at all. Look who's in the house. The great Ned Colletti is with us, former Giant assistant GM, former Dodger general manager. Ned, good to see you. Happy belated 4th of July here on the 7th. Thanks for making some time for us. And, man, I mean, what can you say? The Giants, the Giants have played really, really well. I think a lot of people are surprised. They're 47-41. But, man, the last week or so, they have just absolutely hit the skids, and they just can't hit. 2 hits for Wilmer Flores tonight, 1 for Patrick Bailey, 1 for Casey Schmidt. Crawford hit a 2-run shot, and that was it. They get 5 hits, 4 singles, and the 1 home run, and the Rockies come in, pound out 9 hits, and I believe broke a 10-game road losing streak. So Colorado's 34-55. Giants, as I said, 47-41. But it's made this kind of an interesting month because the trade deadline's coming up August 1st. And there's any number of options. The Giants could probably use an offensive second baseman. They could probably use a starting pitcher, maybe 2. They could use another outfielder. And I'm not exactly sure how Farhan's going to play his hand of cards, but good to see you.
Well, thank you. I think it proves once again how hard it is to win, and you can't fool the baseball season. If we looked at the Giants coming out of spring training and we said this is going to be their record on the 7th of July, everybody go, I'll take that, right? I'll take that. That's pretty good. That's more than we expect. But it's tough to win, and you've got to have so many things going in your favor, including knowing how to win and knowing how to execute. And I think they played as hard as they can play. I don't think there's anything really that you could say, well, this player is dogging it or this player is not giving their all. I think it is what it is. And by the time we get to another 2 or 3 weeks down the road here, I think LA is going to have a decent lead. And by the time you get to the end, I think Arizona and San Francisco will be battling for a wild card spot. And the Dodgers will be way ahead.
Yeah, big night for Mookie Betts tonight, 3 for 4, drove in 4. Will Smith had a big night for the Dodgers. JD Martinez drove in a couple. Dodgers pound out 11 hits, and they beat the Angels at Dodger Stadium 11-4. LA now 50-38, and they're doing it on the strength of their dominating at home. 28-16 is what the Dodgers are at home. I will say this for the Giants. There was a stat in the pregame that I saw that really surprised me. The Giants have used the injured list, Ned, 29 times thus far. It is July the 7th. That 29 trips to the injured list is the most of any team in all of Major League Baseball. I don't know why exactly. I don't know if there is a reason for it or if it's just, the way it's shaken out at this point. But just the fact that the Giants are 47-41 when you factor in the injuries they've had, that right there. It's a minor miracle.
Well, it's a reason, but it's not an excuse.
Right.
You got to sign healthier players or guys that can post more. Everybody goes through it. Dodgers have played all year without Walker Buehler. He might be their best starting pitcher. They play without a lot of guys from time to time. That's become part of the industry. And you can watch the bottom line, MLB Network or ESPN day after day, or you can look at ESPN, the website, and they got the 8 topics of a certain period of the day. Check out, and not really tonight because I just checked it. It didn't have all of it. But check out how many times it's about somebody's going on the IL, somebody's hurt, somebody's not going to make their next start. I mean, it runs through the industry. So if you want to figure out how to be better at everything than your competition, having your best players post is one way. And, that's on everybody. That's not a trainer's fault. That's just It's a reason, but to me, it's not an excuse. Because when you signed them, did you think that they were going to miss all these games? If you did, well, then you got what you expected. If you didn't, why did it happen?
Well, I mean, and if you want to point to anything, I mean, 40-man roster depth is like your number one job as a general manager, just making sure that you're a deep enough team, not just on the 25. The 25-man roster is that's kind of an old way of looking at things. Now it's so much more about the depth on your 40-man. You're going to need to lean on these guys. It's just a matter of when and, in what order. The Giants farm system, they went to their farm system. It was an interesting year. So far, it's been an interesting year. They got off to a terrible start in April, but then they wind up calling up, Casey Schmidt and Patrick Bailey in May. And it had a really nice impact on the team. It gave the team, a little youth, a little energy, a little bit more defense in the middle of the diamond. Then they called up Luis Matos in June, and they started to hit their stride. But, now the advanced scouting reports have gotten around the league. Schmidt went 1 for 2 with a run scored tonight, but he's down to 232 with a 268 on base. Matos is hitting 235. Hitting consistently down in the order. Bailey had a hit today. He's still above 300 at 303. He's been an incredible find. I don't know what's better, his defense or his offense. He's been really, really good. But, let's talk about that for a second, because it is the majors like the first level where you have guys who are, paid a big salary, the advanced scouts to turn off your water. I mean, there's no advanced scouts in AA, right? There's no advanced scouts in AAA. You just play the schedule, and I mean, they're trying to beat you, but there's not somebody who's honing in on you, studying film on you. But in the big leagues, that's a reality. So when you see these guys like, Ronald Acuna or Shohei, and these guys are still doing it, day after day after day, or Mookie Betts year after year after year. I mean, it really speaks to how great they are, because they've made it. They have tendencies. Teams scout them to beat them, and yet they find a way to adjust and keep playing at a really high level. It gives me tons of respect for the best players in the game, because they find a way to adjust back after the pitchers adjust to whatever they're doing.
That's exactly right. It's the toughest thing. It is, I think, the toughest. I think it's tough in any sport to go from your development level to your highest grade. NBA's got a little bit of a league. NFL's really got like a taxi squad, I guess. You would know better than I. Hockey's got an AHL, and baseball's got 6-7 teams. And there's no greater gap than there is from AAA to the big leagues. And you can get video on players that are playing in the minors, and you can look at that. But I can't tell you how many times when somebody got called up to play either the Giants or the Dodgers, even back in my Cub days, if they were in the same league as our minor league team at AAA or AA, we'd call the manager and the coaching staff and ask them, what can this guy do? So you're kind of starting really maybe at 10%, 15% of your overall knowledge of what a minor leaguer is going to be able to do in the show. But then, as you say, once the reports get around, and my great scout Vance Lovelace used to always say, once the ink gets around, we'll find out who they are. And it's true. I mean, Schmidt's going to be a really good player. What's he done the last 40 games? This is no knock on him. This is just an indication as to how hard it is. And on the other side of a career, Crawford's hitting maybe 220 in the last couple of months. I got tons of respect for this guy. 2-time World Series champion, saw him do damage against my team for a long time. But he's 36 years old. It's getting to be a tough thing to do every day. And if you think, I shouldn't say if you think, I should think for a minute of your days, what your days are like, or anybody listening, what their days are like. And put the money aside for a minute and think about, okay, you're struggling as a big league hitter because you're a young player and you haven't been able to to gain all the knowledge you need and all the fundamentals that you need. And you lose tonight and you go 0 for 4 against the worst team in the league. And there's a game tomorrow. You don't have a week off, 3 days off. There's a game tomorrow. And you know what Sunday is? You got a chance at another one. Then you got an all-star break. But it never ends. That's why, to your point, especially with an Acuna, guys like that, or a Betts or a Trout, Otani played in another professional league, so a little bit different for him. But, to be able to come up here and make an impact early, a Posey, guys like that is so difficult to do because it's both physical and mental to me, the daily grind of doing it. And this is no knock on anybody. It's just a reality of the sport. So when people get all hepped up early, I remember, Danny a year ago early with Bart and, Schmidt
Right.
with this year. Oh, yeah. I said, oh, yeah. It's good in the snapshot of today. What's it going to be a month from now, 2 months from now, 3 months from now? They don't play against Colorado's pitching's not very good. The guy tonight came in with an ERA like 6.40, 130 some base runners in 80 innings. Didn't make any difference. He still commanded the ball and beat San Francisco. But you don't see a lot of those guys, and it's rare that that you're going to see somebody that you're going to see in AA or AAA, especially when you get to the month of July. The best pitching in AAA, they're on a big league roster right now, with rare exception. So it's a totally different dynamic. So anybody that counts in those young players to carry them over the finish line, I got to see it to believe it, because it's not going to happen very often without 6 or 7 veterans that can really play. And you can hide a kid in the lineup. You can give a kid a chance to go 1 for 20 and play some good defense and keep them calm and keep them steady, because they get flustered too. They're playing in front of thousands of people every day and another million on television. So it's what can be expected. That's what makes LA so good for so long. And that's what, with rare exception, the Giants and, Arizona, nice start. The season was 81 games long. They'd be having a parade down Central. It'd be great. But, the season's not 81 games long.
No. I mean, everything evens out. You can feel good, you can feel bad, but it evens out, and you find your water level. We're about 12 minutes into our live stream. We should tell you we're brought to you by Pig and a Pickle, the best barbecue in Northern California. Check them out in Emeryville and Corte Madera. They're open 7 days a week in Marin, 11 a.m. to 8 p.m., Wednesday through Sunday in Emeryville. And on the bottom of the screen, you see our new sponsor, Marin Auto Glass. MarinAutoGlass.com, 415-883-3030. If you're driving down the street, you got a pebble, it shatters your windshield or cracks it, you need that thing popped out, a new one put in there, Marin Auto Glass will come to your home or place of work, pop out the old windshield, pop in the new one, glaze it, sweep away the glass. One-stop shop, MarinAutoGlass.com. Thanks to our... Yes.
When Marin Auto Glass come down to my house in Southern California, I got a windshield they'd have fun with.
Oh, you got some cracks in the windshield?
All that driving.
Oh, my God.
Any chance they come down there?
I think you might be outside the territory. You might be just slightly outside the territory. But if you had that car in Northern California, you could pull that car into any driveway and they would say, where are you? What kind of car do you have? What's the make? What's the model? What's the year? And an hour later, you got a brand new windshield. But yes, we are brought to you by Marin Auto Glass, New York style Italian sausage, and of course our title sponsor of the Krueg Show, Pig and a Pickle. Okay, couple things. One, hit that like and subscribe, everybody. If you hit the like, more people find the show. If you hit subscribe and hit that notification bell every time we go live with Ned or anybody else for that matter, you'll get a little notification and you can jump into our shows and join us on the dialogue. Mark Hope has donated $5. He says, Ned and Larry post 24/7. Yes, he would love to see it every day. And then Mark Hope drops this one. He says, I'm old school and just had a bourbon. I fire Kapler. That's the beauty of the post game. Somebody's always getting fired in the post game.
Oh, you know what? That's what he just said. I got a note last night and he said, this was old. This is what we grew up with. And it was one sentence. And he said, every day we opened up a ballpark and every night we closed a bar. And that was a lot of it. We loved it. It was decades of that.
Oh my God.
Every night we would go and toss a couple back and talk about what we had seen and what we had learned and how tomorrow had a chance to be a better day.
Well, I mean, that's the thing. And of course, Derek Brantley jumps in first one. He just fire Farhan immediately. Okay. Well, I mean,
Farhan's credit, he doesn't have a Chris Bryant contract hanging over his head.
Well, how about that? What do you think? Who is Colorado's general manager at this point?
I think it's Bill Schmidt, I think.
Okay. So what do you think they're thinking when they signed Chris Bryant, who had injuries, to such a monster deal? I mean, it's like, if you're going to spend that kind of money, don't you want to see it impact the standings? It's like, they signed this guy. You would think that their baseball's instituted a salary floor. I mean, I like the idea of a salary floor, but to date, there's not one in baseball. So what are you doing as you're trying to develop and promote your team from the second division into a competitive outfit and attaching yourself to contracts like Chris Bryant? What an ugly deal. He's making huge money for the next 3 or 4 years.
2.5 years. And nothing, it's not his fault.
No.
I mean, who wouldn't take it, right?
Right.
It's not him. But, I think it's to buy time. I don't know. Catch lightning in a bottle, fool somebody for a minute. How about spending $27 million on your farm system or on the best by practice scouting and development system, whether it be some analytics, some really good scouts, whatever it takes, whatever the best in class do. How about spending $25 million a year on that? You'd probably have a better team in a quicker period of time.
Do you know what Colorado's payroll is? I have it in front of me.
I don't know off the top of my head.
But I mean, if you were guessing, what would you guess? Because they're a last place team.
I'll look it up here while we're talking.
No, I have it in front of me.
Okay. I don't know. 100?
$172 million.
Get out of here.
Opening day, 26-man payroll this year, $172 million.
Gosh.
I mean, that is not a lot of bang for your buck. They were at 131 last year, 105 in 2021. See, here's where this thing gets weird. As we welcome in Danny, who also joins us. Hey, Danny, how are you, man?
Great. I'll be right with you.
No problem.
Take your time, Danny. We're in a good place right now.
All right, be right there. I'm gonna send the crew over from the other channel.
Okay, there you go.
We'll come back. Yeah. All right.
Okay, so 172 this
guys.
year. Hold on a second. We'll mute Danny for a second. We'll mute you, Danny, so you can talk to whoever you need to talk to. Wait, there we go. Can you hear us? All right. Okay. 172 this year, 131 last year, 2021, 105, 2020. Now, granted, that was a shortened season, so that doesn't count, but it was 53 million. 145 in 2019, 136 in 2018, 127 in 2017. And this is opening day. This is not, with the tax, this isn't the year end. With the tax, the tax on their 40-man for this year, they're projected to be spending $195 million.
Mercy.
Bill Schmidt is the general manager. Bud Black, obviously the manager. Chris Bryant signed I said he's got a couple years left. Forgive me.
3.5, I think.
7-year deal. He makes 17 this year, 27 next year, 17 in 2022, 27 this year, 27 next year, 25, 26, 27, and 28. He's making $26 million. And wait for it, full no trade.
Just those numbers are a full no trade.
I know. I mean, seriously.
In there.
That's unbelievable.
Look, everybody's got their deals that they regret doing. I had Andrew Jones. I only had Andrew Jones for 2 years at 18 a year. And the second year, we bought him out and paid it out over a period of time. That was my one. And Jason Schmidt, which insurance paid about 70% of what we paid. But
what happened with Schmidt? He was just never healthy, huh?
Apparently not. We had seen him pitch. I think the last series. I mean, I knew him from my San Fran days, and we were apart 1 year. We were apart in the 2006 season, and we had seen him pitch in the last weekend of the season. He looked like the same guy. Brought him in, signed up for 3 years, had a physical. Everything seemed good. He got to spring training. He had nothing. And we tried a bunch of different things, and they went in unoperated, and they found stuff that MRIs and things hadn't shown. And, he tried to come back. He tried to do it, but it just wasn't there.
What a sick feeling that must be, because you're dangling. You know how much you spent. Is that something that a guy like McCourt would want to talk about, or is it just so ugly that it's not even worth talking about?
Well, we were wise in getting insurance because he had never had that type of injury before. So I think we paid him 45, 46, maybe 40, somewhere in that range, 15 a year for 3 years. And insurance covered at least half of it, maybe even more than half of it. So it wasn't as I guess financially devastating as paying the entire thing. But it was tough. I mean, a lot of respect for him. I mean, we had him in San Fran. I knew what he was capable of. I remember seeing him in Vero Beach. I can still picture it. I was thinking, this isn't good. And Stan Conti was our trainer, had him in San Fran. And we were standing there watching him throw off a mound and, in the early parts of the camp. And he said, this doesn't look good. And it wasn't. No, I mean, he did the best he could. It just wasn't there. So, I mean, you have to live with that stuff, but you have to be wise with where you can take insurance out, where you can protect yourself. And with any pitcher at any point in time, they're always one pitch away from not being the guy you signed. That's why you got to develop your pitching. That's why you have to know your pitching inside and out. It's not necessarily going to stop them from getting hurt one day, but you've got your best gauge on how they prepare, what constitutes their arm action, how their elbow works, how their shoulder works, how their release point works, how their bottom half works. All those things, when you've seen them since they were 18 or 20 or 21 years old, you've got a feel for it. Whenever you sign a free agent pitcher, you're taking on somebody else's goods. And just like I saw tonight in the game, I'm going to try and tie two things far apart together right now. You always can learn how a player's doing by how the team they're with responds to them. Okay? So when you're able to sign a free agent starting pitcher from a team that's good and competes and knows what they're doing, you'll be a little bit leery about that. Why aren't they signing a pitcher? Why are they giving up a pitcher that can still compete? But I was in a hurry to turn it around. We turned it around the first year, and then we scuffled for one more year, and then turned it back around in 2008. But that was their thought. And I bring it up to tonight because I watched Slater tag up after the Crawford home run, and they get some momentum. And Doyle is playing center field, young player. He's not deep, and he doesn't even really catch the ball fundamentally correct.
Right. He didn't take a step back and step into it.
No, I mean, not bad, but not good. It was certainly a better setup. And he threw Slater out by 20 feet. So right. I tie it together.
Reminded me of JT Snow.
I tie it together this way. I tie it together to what I just said about how a team – that told me how desperate the Giants are offensively.
Yeah.
When you're going to send Slater and Doyle is playing, is catching a ball 80 feet, 90 feet back at second base, and he's got a setup like he's got, and he throws out Slater by as far as he does, it tells me the mindset of where they're at. I'm not condemning it or criticizing it.
It is what it is. They're not scoring. They're looking for runs any way they can get it.
Runs. We got a ball that's in the out. That's on up. We got a chance. Well, let's make them execute. You got to do that too. But
we welcome
what it is. You can always tell by what your opposition is doing what you're doing and how the team treated the player when they had him.
No question. We welcome in Dan Coccimilgio, who started off over at NorCal Sports Network, and he's going to head back there at some point. But, Danny, give us your thoughts on this one. Rockies get the 5-2 win. You know, it's to me, Dan, it's like I did postgame for so many years that, you know, it's like people walk out of the ballpark going, damn, you know, the reliever. Taylor Rogers walked those guys. Tyler Rogers gave up the bomb. That ain't the story. The story is you scored 2 runs off a totally mediocre pitcher at home, and you're not swinging the bats. And yet people in a night like this will walk to the exits going, man, the relief pitching. And all these people in the comments in the chat here, the pen. That ain't the story. They're not hitting a lick right now.
Yeah, they faced a pitcher who came in with a 6.8 ERA, and he gave up 2 runs on 1 pitch. And he hung one right over the middle, and Crawford made him pay, but that was it. Giants have scored 26 runs in their last 11 games. That's an average of 2.36 runs a game. And 2 of those wins, they won 3-0 and 2-0. So they've won 4 games in 11 out of the last 11, and they were 2 shutouts.
You said 2.6 runs a game over the last 26 games.
2.36.
2.36.
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
26 runs in 11 games they've scored. And, you know, one of them to win one of those games was a 3-run homer in the 8th inning by Patrick Bailey against the Mets. Otherwise, they would have lost that game. So this team is coming down to earth. I just read an article over on my channel from Dave Tobner from the San Francisco Chronicle. Excellent article. If you get a chance to read it, Larry, it talked about this team he called it really a red shirt year. He says this team is more like a 500 team, but it's okay because at least they're entertaining more this year because they got young guys. Last year, if this was happening where they were doing this, you'd be pulling your hair out because it was like all these old vets that were going nowhere and there was no hope for anything. Now you've got some hope. This team might make a wild card team. You know, they might make that 3rd wild card, but you know, it's really about the development. And I did a show yesterday. I says, don't trade your top prospects to get into this thing and you know, try and get a rental, or if you're going to trade a top prospect or, you know, a Luciano and a top pitcher or something, you better be getting a Juan Soto back. Okay. Who's got at least another year after this year, but don't get no 2-month guy.
I agree wholeheartedly. Mark Hope, by the way, says, Mr. Colletti. Now you're getting Mr. Colletti. Please send Larry a Giants flag. See, there's a lot of people complaining I got too many Niner flags in the background.
What's up with that, Larry? Come on.
Well, because I do so much Niner stuff that I got Niner flags everywhere back here. But
you gotta get at least a flag or something to pull down over one of those Niners.
I know. I gotta have a whole green screen.
You got five things hanging there with the Niners.
Dan's got more Giants stuff than you got. I could turn the camera and show off the Giants stuff. You got
seriously. Okay. I mean I gotta get a Giants green screen or something. But
Readers Uni right there. I got Willie Mack. I love Willie Mack.
Willie Mack, class act. Lou Marston in the chat says
Mays bat over there. A Mays picture with the catch.
You probably got Giants
Niners upside down crop. Hey, Mark Hope, good call there.
Hey, I got something for you, Ned. I want to do this with you sometime. We won't do it tonight, but I want you to think about this. I want you to put together an all-time 26-man roster, LA Dodgers, top 26, and I'll do the Giants, and we'll compare and see who you think would be the better team.
All time?
Just San Francisco, Los Angeles, not New York or Brooklyn.
58 on. Okay.
The Giants would win that. Come on.
I think so, too.
Giants would win that.
Yeah.
Dodgers have better pitching, though.
Dodgers have the better pitching. Giants have, Marichal, Perry, and maybe Lincecum at his top.
Madison.
But the Giants infield is like McCovey, Kent, Crawford, Williams, and the outfield is Bonds. Both Bonds and Mays.
You don't need to do it again. You'll win.
Who would be the Dodgers 5-man in LA? Koufax, Drysdale, Kershaw,
Sutton,
right? You going Sutton over? They had some great ones.
Fernando.
What about Ramon Martinez was damn dominant for a long
you
time.
You can't name all that, Danny. You'd be like, I'd have to trade you some of that pitching. One of those infielders.
Seriously, would you go? Yeah. I mean, and then not only, I mean, I can remember Jerry Royce was a giant killer with that blonde hair.
Was a giant killer.
I'll give you another giant killer. Bert Happy Hooten.
Yeah.
Former Cubby.
With the knuckle curve.
Former Cub.
He was damn good. Bert Hooten was really good. Yes. Charlie Huff was good. They had a bunch of guys. I mean, they just had every year the Dodgers always had premier guys. And
break this down, Danny. The top 20 pitchers for both teams, the top infield, the top outfield.
Well, you got to go McCovey. You got to go McCovey over.
Our back, we got McCovey, Will Clark, and Orlando Cepeda on the bench.
You can DH these days. You can have one of them DH. You can play the baby bull in left. Although you have Bonds in left.
Yeah, you got
the Giants could probably, the darndest thing about the Dodger thing is that most of those Dodger guys that you're thinking of were all on one team in the 70s, right? I mean, Dodgers in the 70s.
Oh, Say, Russell and Lopes and Garvey and yeah.
And even individual years. I mean, there were some individual. Steve Sachs had an amazing year. I mean, there's been some incredible individual years along the way as well. We got a bunch on here. Lou Marson says, "How can you win when you only score 26 runs in 11 games?" Giants
only
tonight get a 2-run home run and 4 soft singles.
You got to have Koufax, Drysdale, Kershaw. Then you got.
Hey, what is Kershaw's deal? Elbow, shoulder? Is he coming? Are they gonna pickle jar him until September?
No, I'm half and half on this. No, they may have thought, hey, look, we're playing well. The other two teams are scuffling. Let's give him a little bit of a break with the All-Star game. He'll miss a couple starts. I think we'll know more when we get to the 20s of July, if it's serious or if it's just a chance to give him a break. But if the Dodgers are up by 3 or 4 games, you may take another week. This organization only thinks about, you got to win a division. They know that, but they know how to do that pretty well. It's all about October. It's all about playing the long game. And that's what he does. I tell you what, I'll give him just a little side note here. And I know I drafted him and I've known the guy since I've known him half his life, I guess. He plays for 17 to 20 million the last 2 or 3 years. 1-year deals. That's what he takes. That's what he wants. Meanwhile, you got the Mets with Verlander,
$40 million pitchers,
and Scherzer, who are they're all Hall of Fame guys. Are they better than Clayton? Not necessarily. Not certainly. Maybe maybe as you pile it all together
in a particular year, maybe, but not career wise. They're all on the same level.
They're all kind of in an equality spot. But he's doing it for half the dough.
I know.
With a third,
and he wants to be there. I mean, I'll give him credit. I mean, the guy wants to be there.
That's a pretty good thing to do in this day and age. You don't see that often.
No.
Yeah, and I think the news with Dustin May going down again probably will shut down Walker Buehler till next year. No reason to bring him back in September.
Well, what's one got to do with the other?
Well, I just think he's pushing it even at, what is it, like 14 months in September for him? He had the surgery in August, right? 13.
Pitched out of the pen?
What's that?
Pitched out of the pen? Pitched 10 innings in September?
Yeah, I don't know. He's too valuable to me to.
Well, you got to put doctor next to your name or orthopedic.
I just think it. I mean, I just think
the Giants close.
I don't know. I think it. I heard Davey, not Davey Lopes, Dave Roberts say he thinks that Walker's being a little, too presumptuous. He's competitive, and he goes, I don't see it happening personally, but.
We know what LA is going to trade for at the deadline. They're going to trade for starting pitching because they're
probably going to get Otani.
Well, I mean, that will be interesting if they do. I don't know what kind of prospects LA is going to throw to the Angels. There is talk today, though, that Otani may get dealt at the deadline. This is an interesting chat here, Ned, from Will Martinez. He says, Ned, can you please let Giants fans know that no matter what, Larry Baer and the Giants ownership will not allow this team to be sellers no matter what happens. They have never been sellers. I don't know if never, but it's rare. Maybe one time in the since the ballpark opened have the Giants ever sold anything. There's a lot of truth in what Will Martinez says here. The Giants did not sell on Madison Bumgarner. They let him walk as free agency. They did not sell last year on Carlos Rodon. Then they took the draft pick compensation and let him walk away in free agency. Ned, give us a little glimpse. Obviously Larry. We all know Larry, but I mean, you know him better, and you know the ownership group and how it's comprised. The Giants do not like waving the white flag, especially if they have anybody that they're honoring in August, any former Giant any big weekend promotion they have coming up in September. They do not like to sell. But this year, they have, when you look at this team, and I got into this argument the other day with Mark Willard on 95.7 The Game, and we had Farhan on the show, and he totally undercut me. He's like, Farhan, Larry and I are debating. This is right in the middle of the Giants' hot streak. Larry wants to trade these starting pitchers. I don't want to. What do you want to do? It's like, oh, Christ. And sure enough, Farhan's like, well, we don't want to sell. We want to stay in this thing and we want to compete. Well, of course. I mean, who's not going to say that? I'm just looking at it more realistically. And I'm looking at this year as kind of like the 86 Giants, where that was a developmental year. They won 83 games that year and they set themselves up for 87, 89, 93, so on and so forth. There's a lot of young players. I think this year is about development. I don't think this year is about contention. The Giants have a shot at the wild card for sure. I don't think they got a real shot at the division, but I'm looking at this team going, if you wanted to trade Jock Peterson, I think the Yankees would come calling, probably a few other teams. If you want to trade Alex Cobb, you could probably get something really good for Alex Cobb. There's probably 2 or 3 other guys, Danny, that I'm not even thinking of that they could probably move. Conforto, if they wanted to move Conforto, there's probably a couple others. Wilmer Flores. What do you think? Do the Giants, if you were advising the Giants or if you were sitting there in this job, how do you look at the race? They can definitely be a wild card team. Is it worth? I agree with Danny though, wholeheartedly. There's no way I'm trading anything of note, and shortchanging my run by moving off of top prospects for this year. There's no way. But I'd go the other way. I'd say, hey, you want Alex Cobb? You got him. Let me accelerate my rebuild. You want Jock Peterson, Yankees? I'll take William Warren and Ezekiel, or what's the other guy, the outfielder they have that's been up and down.
Is it Flavian or what was his name?
Oh, Florial. I'll take Estevan Florial and William Warren for Jock Peterson that was rumored a couple weeks ago and move down the road. How would you play your hand of cards? How do you think Farhan will play his hand of cards?
I play it the way you just described. I think they got a shot at the wild card. What that means, a couple more days, week, I would not under any condition trade a real prospect out of here. Can't do it. And those players you mentioned, Conforto's got a player option coming, right?
Yes, he's got an opt-in.
Okay.
Or he can opt out or opt in. Yeah.
I think he'd be a good guy to hang on to if he's going to stay. So you almost have to have that kind of conversation with him.
His agent's Boris, though, and Boris always likes.
We know how that's probably going to go, but you still got to. You just can't guess, so you got to have the conversation. But again, I would not.
He signed a 2-year, $36 million deal, 18 this year, 18 next year, and he can opt out of the contract after this season with 350 plate appearances this year.
Anybody that's got value that people come calling on, I'd have to listen to. That's not selling necessarily, but I would have to get exactly who I wanted. I wouldn't do it just to shed payroll. You can't do that. As the listener wrote, they don't, that's not their style. They do want to win. They love to compete. But you may have a chance to accelerate the growth of your farm system. And if you can do that, you've got to listen to those deals, because you still have to beat the king on the hill. They ain't going anywhere. And so you've got to really have some really good young players. So when that free agent comes about that you really love, a Judge type of guy, less on Correa, obviously, you got the finances to balance it out. But I'd have to listen. It's your responsibility in that seat to know every option you have. And you can't not listen. But if I was sitting in the chair, I would say, you know what? If we're hanging in there, or even if we're more out than in a wild card, I'd say, yeah, you want Cobb? Yeah, you want Jock? Yeah, okay. I'll listen to that. How bad do you want him? Do you want him bad enough to help my team? This has got to be a deal that helps both organizations. I'll help you in 2023. You're helping me in 24 and beyond. That I would do.
This is unlike the Giants to want to sell, and the Giants, are so excited. Let me, because of how things had gone in May, but now they've hit the skids a little bit. They're not swinging the bats. They got a bunch of guys hurt. I mentioned off the start of the show, Danny, 29 times Giants have used the injured list this year, far and away the most in Major League Baseball. It's a tough call because there may be some pressure. What do you think, Ned? I mean, how impulsive or how bottom line oriented is the Giant ownership group? Is it possible that Farhan and Gabe have a, hey, you know what, make the playoffs or else kind of a mandate? I mean, that would be a really bad decision if the Giants ownership group was putting that kind of pressure on the regime. But let's be honest about this. They won in 107. But other than that, it's, the attendance has fallen through the floorboards. You can get tickets. You can walk up and sit wherever the hell you want to sit most days. The attendance probably has never lacked momentum like it has recently since they've opened this ballpark. What kind of ownership group is this? Do you think this is it's not necessarily the same group that was there when you were there, because you've got some people that have passed on, and you've got some people that have passed their ownership stakes to their children. Who knows? I mean, Harmon Burns might have done one way, but maybe the people that are now running it, the people that he's left it to may have a stronger opinion, or they may be more impatient. Charles Johnson may have had one approach, but Greg Johnson may have a different approach. What's your guess as far as the Giants? What kind of pressure do you think that Gabe and Farhan are under? Is it possible they're on hey, you know what? We got to see a playoff team somehow, some way. There's an extra wild card team, or you know what? We may go in a different direction. What do you think?
I would be surprised if they had a mandate. I think the Giants ownership is a great group. I think they understand the game. They understand the ups and downs of it. Do they want to win? No doubt. Do they know that it's not that easy? I think they understand that. So I don't think there's any mandate. I think if the team has a 10-20 September, and you start to infuse some of the youth in your organization, and they're not fundamentally sound, they come up short talent-wise by a large margin, then there may be some sparks. But if they play 500 baseball the rest of the year, and another young player or two comes up and shows that they can handle the everyday grind of the big leagues, not the way they'll handle it in a year or two, but they handle it respectfully, and they know how to play. See, there's different aspects to the talent of the game. There's the talent you have, and there's the talent to know how to play. And I used to tell our player development guys, and we brought a lot of guys up that turned out to be great players, but they needed to know how to play. Don't send me somebody up here that can't run the bases. Don't send me somebody up here that can't make a cutoff in a relay. Don't send me that. I don't want those guys, because that's got nothing to do with talent. That has to do with knowledge of play. So the Giants call up players. They go 500 the rest of the way. The guys they call up show that they know how to play. Talent may be a little bit behind because of first big league talent. I don't think there's any mandate that's gonna cost anybody their position. I think it speaks well for the organization. You bring guys up that don't know how to do anything. You go 10-20 down the stretch. You finish 5 to 10 games under 500. You got 15,000 people sitting in the seats the last couple of weeks of the year. Yeah, then you're going to have an issue.
Ned, we're talking about guys, Cobb or Peterson, these type of guys. Is there like JD Davis is having a really good year. He's arbitration eligible for his 4th year next year, and then he's a free agent. He's going to be 31 next year. So you got him for all of next year, and then he becomes a free agent. Is he a guy that would be valuable enough to a club that if you're rebuilding, because you've got Casey Schmidt, whose natural position is third base. You got Marco Luciano, who's their number 1 prospect, who's a shortstop. Crawford's, last year. Do you look as a GM saying, hey, I can get a lot for this guy, or is he not going to bring you as much as someone else would? Is he would he get the most out of him at this point of his career, since he's having probably a career year?
I think there's players that have more value in the organization. I think there's probably no discounting the year, might be a little bit more doubt in him than on some of these other guys. Jack Peterson's got himself a couple rings, 2 different teams. Not easy to do, So I think there's probably more of a value. But again, you got to listen. You got to listen to what people say. People will evaluate your players, and they'll tell you what the value is. Your value may not be their value, and you got to figure that out. Want me to address this real quick here? Milan Lucic.
Yeah, Mark Hope says, Mr. Colletti, as a Bruins fan, Milan, is it Lucic? Is that what it is? Lucic?
Yeah, Lucic. Yeah. Lucic.
He's returning to Boston is a huge freaking deal in terms of toughness and confidence for the club. Your thoughts?
He is he's probably not an 82-game player. He brings a lot of toughness. He'll be fierce, especially in Boston, where he had such great times. I saw him a lot this year. Don't think you're getting the same player who left. You may be getting the same mindset, but you may not be getting the same physicality and the same ability to do the things he did as a Bruin earlier in his career. That said, for $1 million on a 1-year deal, you take a shot. More sentimentality attached to it than probably anything else. He'll help.
You got a lot of hockey sticks back there, I see.
Yeah, I do.
Now, are those like autographed hockey sticks?
They're guys that I met. Yeah, there's a lot of good ones back there. There's a lot of Hall of Famers back there. There's a lot of guys that just played hard. The Sharks had a player named Todd Harvey. Todd Harvey was a 4th-line player. And I became close with him, Vinny Danfus, Scotty Thornton, Mike Ricci, who I still see a lot because we worked together in San Jose. And when Harv played his last game, and he was an 8 to 10 minute guy, he gave me his jersey. And I've got some jersey hanging in my office. Maurice Richard, Sidney Crosby. I already mentioned Reeder and Willie Mack and Kirsch and Greg Maddux and Todd Harvey. And I saw Todd Harvey at the draft in Nashville a week ago. And I says, I still got that jersey hanging up in my office. And it blows them away all the time. But the sticks are a lot of different guys I met. And I met a lot of them through a guy who lives in San Francisco area named Jim Darby. Jim Darby is one of the nicest people I've ever met. He worked for Easton Sports for decades. Easton was a big supplier of hockey sticks, including my hockey sticks were Easton made. And he introduced me to a lot of these guys. I got Yzerman, Lemieux, Crosby, Gretzky, all these guys I met through him, a lot of great ones. So I built a little stick rack and I put them up there. Got to put them somewhere. It's either there or the garage, right?
Man, you mentioned Easton. That makes me old. I was using Easton in Little League aluminum bats.
The Easton aluminum bats.
Darby, I would hope Jim Darby, somebody be listening and call Jim Darby up. Jim Darby is such a good guy. I had a lot of friends in the Bay Area that struggle to make ends meet. It's not a cheap place to live, as we all know. And if I had a family that had a gal playing softball, little kid, or a little guy playing little league or something like that, and they didn't have equipment, and Darb found out about it, this kid had the best equipment on the team. That's the kind of guy Jim Darby is. He outfitted probably 20 of my friends' kids in the Bay Area. Never asked him. He just, said, "Hey, what's going on? Who do you know? Need anything?" And I said, "Well, there's a couple of people. Well, hey, what do they need? How tall are they? How much they weigh? I'll take care of it." Catching equipment. I mean, major league gloves, for a kid playing 9-year-old little league, or softball bats for gals, So anyway, I'm going on and on about somebody that is responsible for half those sticks on the wall over there.
Nice. Glass half full guy says, if Ned was the GM of the Giants right now, do you sit down with the manager to make lineup changes?
Well, I would never tell a manager who to play. I would always tell a manager what I'm seeing. And if I see a guy who needs a day off, I'd say, "Bat's slowing down. This guy's really looks like he's fighting it a bit. I'm encouraging you to find a day to give this kid a break. Got the All-Star game coming up, so you're getting a break anyway. But there's something to a break when there's a game going on and you don't have the pressure of playing. You're getting 4 at-bats in it or whatever." But that's how I looked at it. I never, God forbid, I put a lineup on Felipe Alou's desk or Dusty's desk or Grady's desk or Joe Torre's desk. This is who I want you to play today, and this is where I want you to hit, and this is who I want you to pinch hit for from the 5th inning on, and here's how your bullpen's going to set up. I don't know if teams do that or not.
I think it's going on today. I think it happened with, last week the Giants were playing, I think it was Sunday night. Yeah, Sunday night baseball, playing the Mets. Ross Stripling just pitched 66 pitches on a rehab assignment. He pitched 4 or 5 days earlier an inning, flawless inning. He comes in, he starts the game. First 2 innings, he mows the Mets down in 24 pitches, and they pull him because it was planned before the game to pull him. But Gabe was interviewed by Buster Olney during the game, and he said, "Yeah, he's got 60 pitches in him tonight. He'll go 60 pitches, give or take." And that was happening in the top of the second while Stripling was out there, and then he never came out for the third. I thought, well, maybe he's injured. No, that was just the plan, they said. And why would you pull a guy in a game that's only thrown 24 pitches and he's not had any stress at all? And then it's like managing the game before the game instead of like with your eyes.
It's tough to do that, Danny.
Jeez. It's just unbelievable. I've seen it too many times, though.
We've got this one from MF. He says, Ned, have you ever had a player use fatigue as an excuse like Anthony DeSclafani?
I think I've had players who showed fatigue. I don't know if I've ever had a player say, "I can't post today. I'm too tired," or I'm not feeling good. There may have been a few that kind of went about it in a soft way.
Keep it in house.
Training staff. This guy is struggling. You don't want to get somebody hurt, so you make an adjustment.
That's stuff you keep in house. You don't tell the press that you're a little tired. It's not even the All-Star break.
Well, that's what he did. He came out and told people he
told the press that he's just running out of gas early.
Well, it's funny too because DeSclafani is a notorious fast starter. Gets off to real fast Aprils and then does kind of tire. And when his innings load starts to ramp up a little bit, he starts to become pretty ordinary. If you look at least in San Francisco, his best stuff has been, in April and May, and then it starts to kind of flatten out. He starts losing the crispness on his pitches, and he becomes much more hittable. Mark Hope said, I say Atlanta versus Texas in the World Series. Thoughts? By the way, love the show. What do you think, Ned? Sitting here on July the 7th, you're probably going to go Dodgers over Atlanta, I would imagine, huh?
Oh, I don't know if I could take anybody over Atlanta.
Yeah, Atlanta's rolling.
Atlanta's so good. I talked to Alex Anthopoulos just a couple days ago. And I said, your season's not starting for another 2 months. And he laughed. He says, yeah, I know. But they're good. They're good, and they got a good young team. Got some guys having maybe historic years. I don't know who can beat Atlanta. Dodgers are really good. Dodgers are going to need some different players on that team if Atlanta stays healthy. Texas, I think, would be a great story.
Tampa looks damn good. Let's not overlook Tampa.
Yeah, I think either way, you got either one of those teams very capable. Texas, I just happen to like Corey Seager, one of my favorites. The manager, who I've never worked in the same team as Boch, but sort of competed against his managing for probably 20 years between the Giants and the Dodgers. So ton of respect for him. He also was a guest in my class last semester. So, I got a little special feeling for Boch there. I had Boch, Brian, and Walt Jockney one night talking about developing an organizational culture. Epic stuff.
Oh, my God, I bet. Senior softball game says, Ned, what do you know about Bob Melvin? Do you think he would be a good fit with the Giants? What do you make of what's happening in San Diego? They have so much talent, and yet I had a guy tell me in March, do not put any money on the Padres. The Padres have terrible chemistry. They're not going to win. And, they look good on paper. Man, they look great on paper. But they look lost. What do you make of what's going on there?
I have questions I don't have answers for. Do the top four guys respect each other enough and get along enough to play well? I don't know. The bottom of their order, the second half of their order, they have so much weakness. If the top four guys were all having years as they've had on the back of their baseball card, the bottom of the order is still troublesome to me. When you try to pitch through a lineup that's got weakness to it and holes in it, you can concentrate on the first four guys, whatever, and you can maybe run a pitch count high and maybe get somebody to chase or maybe even walk a guy or two. Because you got the bottom of the order, chance of them doing damage, not much. And their pitching has been so-so, and they have, with the exception of Juan Soto, they've taken the hunger out of anybody they count on. Everybody's signed forever. Guys who didn't even expect to get signed have been signed forever. So it's a curious spot. And I don't know the inner workings of the organization or their financial wherewithal or how they feel about all of it. I know they've tried to do the best and to unseat LA and to run the West with their spending. But this organization next year may be better, but next year may not be better either. And to spend as much as they're spending and not win it in a year or two, that to me is not good. That is not good. They probably have a fan base now that started this season more excited than any fan base except maybe the Mets. But maybe more than the Mets. How happy do you think those people are right now with a team 5 games under 500?
Oh, I know.
And
very disappointing. Very disappointing year.
Any signs of a fierceness to their compete. I look at your presentation. I look at the fierceness to your compete and how you go about your attention to detail on a daily basis. I've seen 25 of their games. I don't know if I've seen it yet. They go onto the field not knowing if they're going to win. The Giants went on the field for a long time thinking they could beat anybody. I don't know where that's at right now. I don't know where that's at with Arizona either. Chafin comes in the other night with a 1-0 lead, 2 outs in the bottom of the ninth, 2-run homer, boom, done. They'll be out of first place in another day or two.
Well, you called it a month ago, and when you said, "Hey, man, they're leaning on Zach Gallen and Merrill Kelly, and if they lose one of those pitchers, they're going to be hurting." Merrill Kelly went on the DL. They're hurting. I mean, their rotation is not that good. This one's kind of interesting. Truth. Are we going to get truth here out of Ned on this one? Will Martinez's Ned, after a rough loss or a losing streak, would you ever put on Dodger talk on the ride home and listen to what the media and the fans were saying? I mean, the fans have a say. I used to have you on in the post game on KMBR when I was doing the post game show, so I know you were listening to some of those shows because you were on them. But what I mean, but I know you and Brian used to walk around and consult with each other on some of this stuff. But that sounds like it may have even been after some of these shows were over. How
everything was over.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the fans, this is an opportunity for like a Farhan or you, if you're running the show, to listen to the fans and hear what they're griping about. Were you ever even curious to like flip that on and see what kind of reaction there was to the game? It's a 162, long season. God knows you'd have opportunities.
I rarely ever listen to it. And that's not egotistical. It's just a fan's viewpoint is different in many cases. And I don't know any GM. That isn't saturated on a minute-to-minute basis almost every day of the year. Sadly, almost every day of the year. That thinks anybody would know more. It's not egotistical. It's just, where do you spend your time and your thought? There were a few times, though, and this, you may find this funny. I love the host of Dodger Talk, David Vassay. Great guy, just such a good guy, and loves the team and agonizes when they get beat. A few times, if I was driving from San Diego to LA after a getaway day, or if we had a day game and a night game, rarely, but if I had the time to go back home and then come back in the next day, or and stuff like that going on, I'd call him during the commercial break, or I'd text him and I'd say, "You're all wrong about this. Let me give you some insight." And so he would flip during the commercial break and say, I got a thought here I want to share with you.
On second thought,
I thought, and we'd laugh, but I felt I owed him an explanation. I wasn't going to go on the show every night and try and explain things, but here and there, I would text him, or I would call him during a commercial break. And I'd be driving up the 5 from San Diego, going through, Oceanside, or, Encinitas, or whatever, or La Jolla, and, San Clemente. And, hey, David, you and the callers are on the wrong path right now. Let me just give you 20 seconds of insight. Do with it whatever you feel like. And he loved it. And one of my favorite people in my 17 years in LA, named my top, and I won't name the top 25 Dodgers, Danny, but I'll name some of my top people. And Mr. Vassay is always high on my list.
Yeah. Well, I used to catch him too when I was down in Southern California. I got a question for you. Do you think, you go on shows when you're a GM, you talk shows, and you get asked tough questions. Is it a good idea to tell the fans what you're looking for in a trade during the trade market?
In general, but you always got to know that you're only one part of the deal. There's a whole nother part, the other team. And a player's got a no trade clause on your team or the other team. There's yet another party involved. So to predict what you're going to be able to do, I think that's foolish. I think to tell somebody, yeah, we're looking for a new second baseman.
Yeah, that came out today.
What are you telling the second baseman who's standing there? What are you telling that player?
Well, what if your guy's hurt? Like Tyro Estrada's hurt right now. And Giants are talking about second base.
we need to figure out second base. To me, that's a better answer than to pinpoint this guy's not good enough. We need to figure out second base. That could be anything. That could be the incumbent. That could be the guy that's hurt coming back. That could be somebody who's not here yet. You can't be so definitive because there's too much in the clubhouse that needs to be level-headed. And you can't have people worrying about what the boss is saying publicly. You can't. That's a destructive. That'll give somebody an excuse in the clubhouse to do whatever, and to predict. Well, we're going to do this or we're going to do that. We really need this. We really need that. That I'm not sure what that does. What is the upside besides getting the fan excited for 5 minutes? I don't know what the upside of that is.
Well,
you only control 1/3.
Yeah. The other aspect of the thing, have you ever had a player, whether it was San Francisco or LA, that, all players deal with these things differently. Some guys are like, yeah, I don't care. I don't care if I read the paper every day and there's me, I'm going somewhere else, but my wife doesn't like it. My mom and dad don't like it. Did you ever have a player who was so bothered by the rumors that you almost had to pull him aside and be like, hey, shut it off, turn it, block it out, do what you need to do, because this is the reality of this biz and it ain't going to change just because you don't like it. Because I would imagine there's a lot of wives and girlfriends and maybe even, kids, if the player's old enough and his kids are old enough, that they read, oh, you know what? Daddy's getting dealt to Toronto. We could be living in Toronto tomorrow. Daddy's going to go to the Milwaukee. Do we want to go live in Milwaukee? And they're riding that roller coaster of real life deal. I mean, this is kind of it's part of the sport, but and the players get it, but sometimes their families don't. Have you ever had a player you had to I talked to Steve Kerr about this one time, and he said before the NBA trade deadline, sometimes Ned, he'll have to talk to a couple guys who are just they're so bothered by the industry of the rumor mill that they can't get beyond it. Affects their play.
Well, I can understand that, but I would tell guys in small groups or whatever, I tell them in a large group in the spring, but they may forget it, or in small groups in the middle of July. Don't believe anything you read. Don't believe it. Come to me if you have something that's on your mind, and I'll be truthful with you. But that's the only way to do it. Because if you read MLB trade rumors every day, there's 50, when you get to the middle of July, there's 15 guys mentioned. In a 2-week period, you'll have half your team on Major League trade rumors. That ain't happening. So you know what? Come to me. I'll be honest with you. But you got to be honest. You got to do me the favor of not reading stuff and let it affect your play. I think it's a funny story. One of my all-time favorite guys, I had him right at the end of his career, was Brad Osmus. Okay. Catcher, smart, intellectual, really, really a great guy on a team. And I had him backing up. I had him to catch 50, 60 games a year. So we're trying to get Cliff Lee. Okay. And it's in the papers every day, this and that. And so we were in Philly. And I walk in the clubhouse. And as soon as Brad sees me, he goes, everybody listen up. If the whole room goes quiet, they shut the music off. And he says, I just want to say this publicly to Ned in front of all of you guys, that if I'm the player holding up this organization, getting Cliff Lee, I'll go. I just want everybody to know that I will go to help you guys win. And, he was not mentioned in any trade. He was 38, 39 years old. But it was funny stuff like that, just to kind of break the tension here and there.
Well, Ned, I got a question for you. That. I got a question for you. When rumors are coming out, it's trade deadline or it's free agency, you see these guys, whether it's, Ken, I'm trying to, Rosenthal or somebody's putting out the rumors. I'm hearing that this is, who's putting those out? I mean, the club, you're not leaking that as a GM, are you?
The bellman at the Westin could be putting that out. Who knows who's putting
But I
it
mean,
out?
sometimes they get it, and it happens a lot of times. How come that stuff gets out that actually happens? I mean, is that the agent? Is that how does that get out?
Anybody. It can come out from anybody.
Do clubs try and throw little bites out there?
Guys do there a little bit, especially if they're aggravated with somebody, they can tell a writer, yeah, this is what this team is trying to do. It's all stuff like that. We ran a very tight shop in San Francisco and another one in LA. Anybody in the inner circle that would tell anybody anything, take a picture of the inner circle because you won't see it again.
They're gone. Huh?
They're done.
Yeah.
That's why I would tell players, if you read something, that doesn't mean it's happening. Come to me. I'll be honest with you. I'll tell you what we're thinking. But this day and age, it's
an industry. It's an industry.
The media used to double check rumors or get it from more than.
Yeah, I mean, Jeff Passan makes a living doing it.
Now being first is far more important than being accurate.
Yeah.
Accuracy means hardly anything.
Yeah, we all know about Arson Judge.
Oh, does Ned even know the reference? Do you know that Heyman reported that the Giants had signed Arson Judge?
Yeah.
And oh my God. Then backpedaled. It was like people were losing their minds. MF has a quote here from Farhan. He says, this is a quote from Farhan. This is a good team. We've had our ups and downs health-wise, but I think we are a playoff caliber team. There's certainly expectations that will continue. So, I mean, I don't know if that's a delusional take on his part, if that's wishful thinking, but it doesn't sound like the Giants are going to be sellers. It really doesn't. And I would say I'd rather see them sell than buy.
I think he's right on. Health has been an issue. I think they have a team. I said it earlier. They have a wild card caliber team. That's the playoffs. Can they win a division? I take action on that against. But can they make the playoffs? Yeah. I think what he says is the right thing to say. Because he has expectations that they're going to get better.
We got this one from Mark Hope. He says, as men, we all know how it goes. The teams that stick together through the summer will survive. Sometimes along the way, someone has to go. My question is, who on the Giants has to go? Larry, Ned, Dan, nothing but love. Mark Hope. I don't know that anybody, has to go. And as far as, getting cut, nobody's getting cut. But, I mean, it's as far as sticking together, I mean, I don't know. I'm even sure what that really means. The Giants definitely need, I think. There was one stretch about 2 weeks ago where one of their openers, Ryan Walker, is that his name, Danny? Ryan Walker?
Yep.
Started 4 of 8 games. They had 8 games. He had started 4 of them. And the Giants actually have like a 10-3 record, or maybe it's a little worse now, but a couple weeks ago they were like 10-3 when they use a bullpen game or when they go with the opener. I mean, that's amazing to me. It kind of makes me think of like the old Dodger Mike Marshall from the early 70s, who had 90 appearances or something like that.
106.
106 appearances out of 162. He'd be phenomenal in the opener role. That's the thing. If you said to me, what do the Giants need? I think they need a second baseman that can swing it. They need at least one good outfielder, and they probably need at least 2 starting pitchers. Elliot Ramos is 12 for his last 21 with 4 doubles, a triple, and 4 home runs, and only 4 strikeouts in 22 plate appearances since he went back to AAA. Maybe Ramos gets the call here in the next couple days. I don't know. They don't seem like they're huge fans of Ramos.
July 18th before he comes off the 60-day.
Oh, so he can't come up.
It's a rehab. He's on the 60-day till July 18th.
Yeah.
But I would bring him up if he stays hot. I wouldn't wait, because I've seen too many teams, especially a team like the Giants, they wait because they think they got other guys, and then the guy, starts to finally tail off because he's hot, and they don't. or they did it with Matos. He was super hot, brought him up. He stayed hot. Then he started tailing off. But I don't, that's bound to happen. He's only 21. But one question I would have for you on that, Ned, Matos came up. He's always batted at the top of the order. First game up, he arrives the night before in St. Louis. Kapler puts him in second spot, leaves him in the second spot. He's hitting great. He's, all of a sudden, first week he's hitting over 300. Then he decides to move him down to the 6th, 8th spot, the 9th spot. And he starts, he's not hitting as well. With the team struggling like this, my thing is, I'm thinking, why not put the guy, he's a playmaker. He gets on base. He's got speed. He can create a run with his legs. Put him at the top of the order and start taking some chances, stealing some, get on base, take a chance at stealing. You're not scoring runs by, moving the line. It's like, why do managers mess with that when a guy's doing well and he's played the top of the order, his whole life? He's been a top prospect. And then you stick, I know they would probably, I want to take the pressure off of him. But the kid's already shown he can handle the pressure. He's only striking out 13% of the time for a 21-year-old, which is phenomenal. When the league average is 25%, he's at 13. I just think he should be at the top of the order. Do you ever say anything to your manager, like, why you got this guy down here when he was doing well at the top?
I'm sure I've asked guys what their thought process was. There's a lot of things that go into it, Danny. Your thoughts are difficult to argue with, except that we don't know everything. And, he can handle AAA pitching and anything below it. We don't know the mindset of the player. We don't know the everyday. And, and leading off is a big deal. If you do it right, it's a huge deal.
Glass half full guy says, Ned, do you have any thoughts on Will Smith to the Sharks? Is there a Will Smith in the NHL? No.
Yeah, we just drafted Will Smith.
What do you think of the Sharks draft, by the way? One of the other questions in here that I hadn't put up on the board was, here we go. Where is it? What does Ned think of the Sharks draft? Here it is. Mark Graves asks, Ned, how do you grade the Sharks draft without putting everybody to sleep forever?
Is that what I do, Larry?
No, I'm just saying that the Sharks don't have a huge base of fans.
I think the draft was great. And if I'm putting people to sleep, let me know. And I'll
Not at all. But I'm just saying the Shark talk.
The Shark Tank.
Well, my podcast for the Sharks hasn't started yet. It'll be on after 11 o'clock tonight.
Are you doing a podcast tonight with the Sharks?
No. Will Smith is a star in the making.
Is he really?
Will Smith,
I thought they were talking about the Dodger catcher.
No. If the other three players in the draft had gone in a different year, Will Smith was a number 1 or number 2 pick. Ended up being a number 4 pick because the other three guys are studs too. May have been as healthy a top 4 or 5 picks. There's a Russian player involved that fell to 7th who signed with the KHL for 3 years. So when he gets here is a question. But there were 5 players that in a typical year had a chance to be number 1 pick, including Will. Great presence to him, young kid, probably going to play at Boston College next year. But 2 years down the road, he's got a chance to be in San Jose. The second player picked late in the first round, Musty, was also a kid that big power forward. He can play. The draft was good. We're in a position that, we're going to have to be patient and we're going to have to develop. And we're getting closer. It's probably another year away, but I think you'll see some good strides this year. And I think in a couple of years when the Will Smith draft class gets up here and starts to perform, I think you'll start to see a marked improvement. Again, winning is not easy. For 20 years, this team was maybe the winningest team in the league.
They made it look easy.
Had no really down, maybe 1 or 2 down years in 20. Got close to a couple times, didn't get there. Winning is not easy. I think that it's, it'll take some time. But I think the Sharks did. There was a question back a little bit from Luigi. What was that one?
About Bobby Bonilla Day?
Bobby Bonilla Day. Yeah, how about that? Luigi, buona sera, Luigi. Hope you're still awake. Hope I'm not putting you to sleep tonight.
Here it is. Wait a second. Here it is. We call it up here. Yeah, he's asking about Bobby Bonilla and that contract.
Yes.
I believe that was July 2nd, maybe, or July 1st. Yes. Bobby Bonilla's getting paid, I think, through 2035 or something like that.
Yes. It's only $1.2 million a year. It was great agent work.
Gosh, I'd love to have that in my pocket, knowing that's coming in every year.
Danny. You just don't want to talk about it.
I got to work for it, though.
Yeah, he had to work for it. He didn't get the money earlier. He took it late.
I know. As
ownerships change, you look at the books, and of course, it's a multi-billion-dollar industry today. But you look at the books when you're Mr. Cohen buying a team, and you're going, "Yeah, who did this?" It's still $1 million something, But hey, it made sense at the time, and certainly Mr. Bonilla and his agent still love it.
Well, I got something for you, Ned. You're talking about the draft, the NHL draft. Do you get into the MLB draft this Sunday? You up on it?
Yeah, I'll watch it a little bit. I know LSU's got a couple of real good players.
Yeah, Skeens, the pitcher. Yeah, there's a guy I really like, and I'm hoping the Giants draft him. He's projected.
Don't say it, Danny.
Why?
You don't know who's listening.
No one's gonna take my word.
Right before I'm listening to the podcast.
The Giants are rumored to be after the Vandy center fielder.
That's who I want. That's
Enrique Bradfield.
Yeah, I've watched him. He's
a great defensive player. They compare him to Kenny Lofton.
Lofton, Willie McGee type player, speed, just kind of slaps the ball all around. Hasn't even got caught stealing. This year he was 46 for 46. Not a lot of power, but a great center fielder. I just think he would play. I don't know why. I mean, on my channel over one of my guys who comes on with me, Carlos, he mentioned, the Giants should draft to their ballpark because it's such a big ballpark. It's not a big home run park for them. They should draft guys that hit a lot of doubles and got speed. Is that something that you guys did when you were, looking at players in the draft?
It makes even more sense if you're only going to play the player 81 games. You got to draft players whose skill plays everywhere. Speed will play everywhere.
Yeah.
Good defense will play everywhere.
Absolutely, yeah.
You got to do that because you're going to have to win a game with a home run once in a while too.
So, yeah, there's a kid
certain skills that can play in
Wake Forest that led the nation in home runs. Strikes out a lot, but hits a lot of home runs. And I like him, and I like the kid from Stanford, Troy. He's supposed
Tommy
to be
Troy.
Tommy Troy. There's rumors that they're looking at him, and I just don't want him at this point to go high school. Somebody high school, because especially the hitters, you just never, it seems like such a crapshoot for a hitter in high school. I can see a pitcher who can dominate, but the hitters, I
told you that already.
What's that?
I probably told you exactly that in an earlier show. You're probably
Maybe I've heard that. Maybe I heard that from you, but yeah, I've watched hitters play in high school because I go to some games just to kill. I love to watch the game, and you see guys hitting, but the guy's throwing, 83 miles an hour, and he's just grooving them. It's like,
yeah. Most of the pitching in high school are on their way to being accountants.
Yeah.
But you talk about a kid that strikes out a lot in amateur ball. There's an even better chance that hitter is going to strike out even more in the big league.
Yeah, I'm
thinking that this kid's going to suddenly
stop
swinging. Mark Hope must have went to the ATM tonight on his way to the show.
Seriously. He says, Godfather, speaking of the Mets and Mr. Cohen, there are a few teams under 500 after 81. Who comes out alive?
I think the Mets are going to make a run.
Who's gonna jump up? I mean, the Giants are over 500, but the Padres are under 500. I could see them rising up. The Cubs say they want to buy at the deadline. They're 41-46. Maybe they could get it going. Some people feel like the Mets may have jump started their year with in the Giants series. They're under 500. In the National League, those are the ones that stand out. Angels may move Shohei. They're 500.
They should.
Would the Dodgers are the Angels? Is Artie Moreno the kind of guy that would trade Shohei Otani to the Dodgers?
I think it'd be his last choice.
Yeah,
and
that's what I was thinking.
Tell Perry, who you bringing back here, and you better add to it, no matter what Perry told him. That would be a very tough thing for him to do. I was of a mindset before Mike Trout got hurt. You're going to probably have to keep the kid and let it go. But now, their best, and this is circuitous. I said it the other day on a show. It's a circuitous look at it and very complicated. But they may have a better chance of signing him if they could move him for 2 or 3 really good young players, because it would make their organization better. And nobody knows what Mr. Otani is thinking except him and his agents from CAA. They're the only, and his family. Those only people really know what is going to be on his checklist. We'll hear 1,000 things between now and the day he figures that he announces what he's doing. But one of the things he said is, I want to be on a team that can consistently win, and consistently compete. And I want to play in the postseason all the time. One of the things he said. Tough not to believe that. Well, how close is Anaheim to doing that? Right now, they're not very close to doing that.
No, and the history says they're not going to get close.
So, do they have a better chance if they were to send them someplace and get at least 2 and probably 3 really good young players that can really play? They'd be closer. But that's the only way they're going to get closer is by trading them. It's kind of, damned if you do, damned if you don't. But I think the best chance they have, and it depends how he handles the trade and all of that stuff, but the best chance that they have is probably to figure out how they're going to get their team better. And if that's really a requirement of him,
They drafted a couple years ago, might have been during the pandemic, the Angels' entire amateur draft was pitching.
Yep. We'll see how that goes.
Yeah. I mean, that's true. That, though, is dramatic. I mean, I've never seen that. Now, granted, it was a smaller draft.
Still like 20 picks, wasn't it?
It was a lot. It might have been 15, but yeah, I mean, it was a lot, and it was all pitching. I don't know how you can justify something like that, but that was, that's when you don't have pitching.
The hitters a little more predictable, and it's tougher to buy the pitchers, as I said earlier, an hour or so ago.
Guess if you got 20 and you hope 2 made it at the same, in your rotation, maybe, I don't know. Gosh,
there's no easy way. There's no easy way to do this. You need talent to find talent. And you need a lot of good fortune along the way, health-wise. There's no easy way to do it.
Hell of this, hell of that, says Ned. What would be your free agent pitch to Otani?
We don't have an intention to win. We have a history of doing it.
This is if you're the Dodgers, right?
Well, any team that could say that, they would have an interest in them.
I guess the Braves, Yankees, Dodgers, yeah.
We have an interest, and we will. We need to know what you need, not just financially in term, but the rest of your environment, and we'll do all we can to make that happen. But we're not going to tell you what we intend to do. We're going to tell you what we're known for and what our history tells us we have done. It's like interviewing for a GM job. How many young GMs you think go in there and say, well, this is what I'm going to do, and it never happens? because they've never done it. I think it's a lot more sense in a business that's got high profile and a lot of competition and a lot of finance on both sides of it. I think it's better to take somebody that knows what they're doing, has been through the ups and downs, has struggled and figured out how to be successful, and has a record of success. Waiting on somebody to tell you, well, this is what I've seen from a distance, and that's what I'm going to do here. Buckle up, because you ain't going to win for a while, if ever.
You've structured a lot of contracts. And when I asked you a couple weeks ago about hey, that one player that, if you're on your deathbed, you'd be like, I saw this guy. You said Shohei Otani. So we know you got tremendous belief in Otani. I'm kind of the belief that he's the kind of player that transcends baseball. He's more than a baseball player. He's a gate attraction. And Carlos Correa is a baseball player. Shohei Otani's a baseball player and a gate attraction. I'm not saying he's Babe Ruth.
International star.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not saying he's Babe Ruth, but Babe Ruth, they called the original Yankee Stadium the house that Ruth built. They called that for a reason, right? Is there a number that's too much for Shohei Otani? I mean, that sounds ridiculous. Of course, there's some number, but if you're doing that negotiation, do you try to get the guy all to yourself by saying, hey, look, we're going to blow everybody out of the water on AAV? Or is it about, do you think the pursuit of Otani is about, is it about, is he going to want to know who's protecting me in the lineup? What kind of team am I on? Or is it strictly dollars? I mean, he might be able to blow away you might be able to go $50 million a year for 10 years, and somebody might say, we'll go 60. Somebody might say, I think we'll go 75. I mean, we're talking about literally destroying the average, the AAV record in MLB. How would you handle this negotiation? You want high AAV and in a short term, or do you want the total biggest number of dollars on a longer term? He's obviously a gate draw. What's your plan of attack if you're trying to attract this player?
Did you say at the outset of this conversation, is there a number that I'd stop at, or I would be?
Yeah.
Doesn't he pay for Disney, a player that pays for himself?
I think the number I would stop at, or that would make me cringe, would be the number 8.
800?
8 years.
8 years.
I'd be more concerned with the duration than the value.
Well, Ned, I threw this out.
Let him finish.
Yeah.
So why? Give us your thought process.
Let me give you more than that. I think I'd have to get creative in this way, because I don't know. I mean, is he going to pay for himself? I guess. But do you want 8 years down the road, do you want somebody making 50 or 60 million that maybe has paid for themselves, but isn't the same player and is taking a roster spot and is kind of handcuffing you to do anything else? We don't know how it's going to go. I don't even think he's Babe Ruth. Babe Ruth was in a different era. Baseball was coming out of, the 1990 Black Sox, depression, all kinds of things. Babe Ruth, I looked it up the other day. After 1920, Babe Ruth threw 33 innings the next 15 years. Hit 650 home runs. So he was not a pitcher and a hitter at the same time. He did both, but he didn't do both simultaneously. Okay, so that's a misnomer. Okay, and even I've said, well, he's Babe Ruth. He's Babe Ruth in that he pitches and he hits. But Babe Ruth pitched, and he was such a good hitter when he pitched every few days that they moved him to the outfield. After that, look it up, 30 to 35 innings from 1920 to 1935. Drastic difference than this kid. I think what I would do is this. If he wanted 60 million a year, I'd give him 60 million a year. And I'd sign him for 7. And I'd give him an out after 5. And I'd give him an out after 6. And I'd give him at 7, we'd both have the out. And I'd give him a chance to go make more money, stay here if he wants to make what he's making for 7 years. And then we'll see where we're at. Because 7 times 60, still pretty good. And you're talking about the highest AAV in the sport by about 15 million. Right?
It kind of mirrors the original Bonds contract that Peter McGowan signed with an extra 0.
Yeah.
Right. What wasn't Bonds' contract a 6 or 7 year deal for 42 million?
Yeah.
You're talking about a 6 or 7 year contract for 420 million.
Yeah. So 30 years later, it's one more 0.
I mean, wow.
To just go, hey, you want 60 times 10, you got it. Maybe he wants that. But you know what? He may want, I think he's a really intelligent person to begin with. And I think he sees the world in a very broad way. I think he may like the idea of being a star someplace and winning for a period of time and then having a choice to make. Who knows what the team's going to be in 5 years? Who knows what the economy is going to be like? I may be able to go get 70. I may be able to go to the next Dodgers, the next Atlanta Braves. Who knows? I think players, when you get to a point of how much they earn, I think something else that is important to them is their unilateral right to make a choice.
Yeah.
After 5, you can do whatever you want. You can stay for 2 more. You blow out, you're going to get paid for 7. This is how I signed Zach Greinke. We offered basically the same amount as Texas. They offered 6 and 145, something like that. I offered probably within $1 million or so, the same money. But I front loaded it slightly and I gave him an out after 3 years. And he took it. And he went to Arizona and they spent 210 on him. And, ruptured the franchise doing it. But the idea, that's how we did it. We didn't have the Texas tax break. We had California taxes. He gave up probably $20 million signing with us. But he also had the freedom of leaving after 3. So I just think that has value to it. And I think it has value to the club too, because at some point in time, it will be diminishing value. And something that a really smart baseball guy brought to my attention about a month ago and knows his stuff. He says, we're all taken by what this kid has done. He says, but I got to see it for a full year. The way he plays and how his approach at the plate is structured and arm action, all those things, all phenomenal success, but doesn't stand the test of 162 games. He's not saying it doesn't, but he's saying, I don't know that it does. This guy's seen as much baseball as I have. I just thought it was an interesting look at it. And, I would ask you this too, and I don't have, if I had to bet on it one way or the other, I'd say that he would be successful in it. But tell me the last big game, winner take all, he's played in.
Who, Shohei?
Yeah.
I guess it'd be the World Baseball Classic.
Okay.
Yeah,
Any in the big leagues?
What's that?
No.
Any in the big leagues? Did he play? Did he win on a team that won 107 games and then had to play its chief rival in a division series? You ever do that?
No.
Hasn't done it. So there is some unknown to it, and I'm captivated by it. I think he's an incredible player to watch. I went down to Anaheim a few weeks ago and saw him when he was playing the Cubs, and I'm captivated. I tried signing him as an 18-year-old, but when you're talking about, unless you have a franchise that is willing to have it go however it goes when you get to a certain point. I think you got to think about being creative and figuring out a way to make him special. And anything with a 50 in front of it or a 60 in front of it is pretty good special. And that he has a chance to go out and make more.
Does he go to the high bidder? Or do you think?
I don't know that much about him. And, somebody else has told me, a team that never gets mentioned is Toronto. Does he want to walk down the street and have people mobbing him like he's one of the Beatles? Does he want that kind of life? Does he want a different type of lifestyle where he can do what he wants to do when he's not at the yard? I've also heard he would, and again, I have no idea if this is fact or fiction.
In LA and San Francisco, he would blend.
Yeah. And would he want, again, I don't know if it's fact or fiction. He would love to be the premier Japanese player in the history of a franchise. So Seattle's out, if that's the case. They've already had one of the greatest players of all time in Ichiro. The Yankees, Matsui, pretty good player.
Godzilla.
The Dodgers in some case, Nomo.
He's better
some
than
teams
Nomo.
have never really, don't have anybody that would come close to him. But we don't know what he really wants. He probably doesn't know exactly yet what he really wants. But it's going to be a very interesting situation.
Well, Ned, the Giants obviously are desperate for a star, that they went after Judge and then they turned around and signed Correa for 13 years. And so they're looking for a star. They've got their ballpark paid for. Aren't they a team that can afford to maybe overpay? And it seems like, to me, this is just my thinking, they've lost out on everybody that they've ever gone after except Bonds. They lost out on John Lester. They lost out on Giancarlo Stanton. He didn't want to come here. Harper. They lost out on Harper. They lost out on Judge. They lose out. Wouldn't it make sense to just go out and instead of trying to see what the market is and get into a bidding war with 5 or 6 teams, just go out and say, okay, we used to have 29,000 season ticket holders. We're down to like 8. If we sign,
is that accurate?
Yeah, it is.
Well, you heard what happened. Dan Coccimilgio pulled out, and everybody just reacted to that.
There's a lot of people that didn't renew the last few years, but
not from 29 to 8
over the years.
No, yes, those numbers are accurate.
Yeah. So
that's staggering, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's painful to me.
If you're the Giants, you would add 10,000 season tickets. I paid 13,000 for 2 tickets. I've got buddies that paid for the lower. I was on the club level, nice seats, but I have buddies that paid 52,000 for 4. They're 13 a piece. So I would think the average ticket is going to bring in 6,000, 7,000 of revenue. If you added 10,000 season ticket holders the day you signed Otani, that's not counting concessions and merchandise. I think he's worth $75 million for 7 years, $525, and just say, look, this is what we can do. Take it or leave it. We don't want to get into a bidding war. We want to know now because we don't want to put all our eggs here and then wait on you, and then you decide somewhere else, and we're left getting the leftovers in the free agency. Because that's what they did last year.
Danny, I would love to have you on the other side. I would love to have
it makes financial sense, though, if you think about it, Ned. I
don't want to get into a bidding war. What do you think this is? What's my deal if I'm the agent? Danny, in all due respect, I don't really care if you want to be in a bidding war or not.
I say, here's $75 million. You got 3 days. Come back, sign it or not. Goodbye. What's that? Yeah, here's our deal. You got 3 days. Do what you want, but we're gonna pull it.
That's fun. That's fine.
Well, I think what Danny's saying.
You know what? I got to say one more thing. Okay. I understand the entire circle of an organization. The financial piece, the ticket piece, the interest piece, the T-shirt piece, the appeal piece. I decided decades ago I was going to worry about one thing. Because I believe one thing will feed almost everything. I'm going to worry about how many games can I help our team win. I couldn't worry about the rest of this stuff. So I ain't into all. You got the wrong guy to
I think at a certain level, like I understand that Greg Johnson took over negotiations just with Judge, that Farhan was kind of like, it was ownership's deal.
Yeah, I don't blame him.
Yeah.
I think what Danny's saying is he'd rather come in with an above, let's say they're debating between 550, 600, 650. You know what? Screw all that. Here's 750. You got 3 days to decide. I mean, at some point as a GM, Ned, you don't want to be led around by the nose, right? And you don't want your offer shopped.
No, but
and I know that you've been able to do this in the past where you've said, "Hey, look, this is our number. This is where we're at. You know, if you're just going to shop it, go on your business, but this is where we're at." Is that just dream talk when it comes to a free agent of this ilk?
That can work.
That can't
work. But it's a solitary approach. Does he even want to come there?
Right.
Look at the A-Rod deal with Texas. I don't know how much interest A-Rod had in going to Texas, but it was a number that blew everybody away. And what happened 3 years later? Get me out of here.
Right.
You want to go through that one?
Yeah, man, it's kind of like San Diego. San Diego supposedly rolled in with the biggest offer for Aaron Judge in the 11th hour.
So, yeah, I mean, that's the way to do it, Danny. You go as high as you can go. You go higher than you think anybody goes, and you put a clock on it. That's
what I'm saying. Yeah,
that doesn't mean you're going to get the player,
right? But at least you're not led around. You say,
"Hey, Danny, you're getting me riled up here, Danny." So you
that's my job.
Well, you get Shohei Otani, beautiful, and you got nobody else around him, and you win 90 games and you finish 10 back. You celebrating that? And you got 18,000 season ticket holders. Are you celebrating? Is that, in your mind, then, is that a successful team? They win 90. They spend $750 million on one player. They win 90. They finish 10 back. Is that good?
Well, I think the results wouldn't be the ideal, but I think the excitement would be over the top in the Bay Area. I mean, it would be like.
Yeah, the one question, the one part of this that nobody ever mentions is that the season ticket holders don't sign the same term contracts. They're year to year.
Right.
So guess what? You might go from 29,000 season ticket holders to 8,000, and then you sign Shohei, you might be at 35,000. But guess what? If you win 87 games and next year your attendance probably goes down again, and yet you're still on the hook for this monster contract that you probably can't offload. So it's a complex situation.
I probably could have traded you, Danny, if this is how you really think. In about 213, 214, I could have probably traded Yasiel Puig for Madison Bumgarner and Timmy Lincecum because he was the toast of the town. Exciting, draws people.
I didn't ever like the way I didn't like Puig. I didn't like his attitude. I saw his talent the first year, but I just saw too much. I wouldn't have taken a guy like that. But
Radnich and I loved Puig. We loved Puig. We would have done anything for Puig.
So I could have got Bumgarner and Lincecum from your free Yasiel.
No, Larry.
Hey. No, I wouldn't. I wouldn't make that trade. I wouldn't make that trade. I need a player to be thrown in later. Mark Hope says, talent to find talent. Ned Baum, pay attention. And then Mark Hope is emptying the clip. He says, the Godfather, Mr. Ned Colletti, is dropping life-changing bombs tonight. Are we listening? Listen, learn, humble up. Thanks, Mr. Colletti, for leading. Look at that, Mark Hope.
Look at that. All
Mark
right,
Hope.
Mark. Mark's
You're
great.
taking that $50 I sent you, and you're using it well tonight.
Yeah, he's giving it away.
Two different ways in the same.
Hey, speaking of $50, I'm not going to take that money of yours, but remember that little bet we made?
Yeah, we'll see.
I'm not going to take that. I'm not going to take that. I'm just going to ask you to come on my show some night. That'll be good enough.
Okay.
Yeah.
You got
MF
it.
says, does Ned still talk to Sabes even though he's on the East Coast?
Yes, his cell phone still has the same number, and it actually works east of the Mississippi, which it always has.
You know,
is he loving life there?
I'm happy for him. You know, he feels like he's got value. He's busy. He's back in the game. You know, I mean, he's one of my dearest friends and one of the smartest, if not the smartest people I've ever been around in a game. And, you know, I'd see him once in a while, and I could just see the suffering and you know, he needed to be valued, and he needed to be able to work.
It's unbelievable that they stopped valuing a guy who won 3 titles. 3 titles. 3 titles. I mean, seriously.
We've talked about it. There's a lot more to it than that, too.
Yeah.
And there's 1,000 people that had a lot to do with keeping this baseball team in San Francisco. Don't forget the candlestick years. They were there how many years? 40 years? 1960 through 89 through 99?
58. Oh, candlestick 60.
Yeah, 1960. They were there 40 seasons.
Yep.
Look it up. They drew 2 million people 3 times. And not 3 million people, the other 37. No. Less than 2 million people, 37 years. And count how many years they didn't draw 1 million people.
Oh, yeah. I was there many times.
Dodgers were drawing 3 million people.
Yep.
Dodgers and Cardinals both drawn 3 million.
Giants. 97 team starting to bring life back into the city in collaboration with great ownership, tremendous ownership, and all the fans that bought the tickets and the licenses and the whole thing. I don't know that they're doing that with a team that loses 95 games in 97 or 95 games in 98 or 95 games in 99. I don't think it happens. So, and I'm a little bit of a soapbox here, but you win 3 World Series, you go to 4. And you also put together teams at the crossroads of a baseball franchise's lifeblood to a city and a region. Okay. There used to be a sign going over the Bay Bridge. They may have a new ballpark, but we've got the 3 World Series trophies from the early 70s. How's that team doing right now?
Right. They're on the Strip in Vegas.
There's a lot of things to think about. There's a lot of things to remember. And, you know, I was a part of it, and I had a very tiny piece of it. But those teams provided the momentum that the ownership deserved, and the ownership had put forth their own gamble. Peter McGowan starting there and going through everybody else to stay in this city and to build that ballpark on their own. But I can pretty much, if we can go back in time, if the 97 Dodgers play like the 97 Giants play like the 96 Giants or the 95 Giants, that thing ain't going in the ground. They ain't selling 29,000 season tickets or whatever they sold back in the beginning.
41,000 in there every night.
Drawing 3. I mean, again, go back. Candlestick Park, 2 million people 3 times in 40 years. Yeah, and one of the years was because they were leaving.
So most time when I was growing up was 700,000-800,000 a year.
Yeah. So that can't be forgotten with what he did, because that to me is a huge part of a legacy, not just for 3 parades, but making this team a huge part of this city.
No doubt. I can remember
can't-
97. I can remember that that 90 the 97 team, and the Giants played the Cardinals, I believe, 97 on Thursday. This is before the Dodger weekend series. And it was like Giants Cardinals. McGuire hit a moonshot. I mean, it was unbelievable. The most majestic right-handed home run. It bounced one bounce off the scoreboard. The scoreboard and left. There's the fence, the bleachers, the back bleachers. Then there was a walkway. Hit the walkway and bounced up on the scoreboard. 97. There was 12,000 people there. 12,000 people. And the next day, you know the way it worked back then. The Giants would sell out for the Dodgers in a couple weekends. Dodgers rolled in for a 2-game series, I believe. The next, that next thing, and it was 50,000 for those games. But 12,000 on the Thursday day game down the stretch for Giants Cardinals and McGuire. It was the year before McGuire went crazy, but still, McGuire was still hitting massive tanks. They just did not draw at Candlestick. Just did not draw.
Danny, can you look something up?
Sure.
And I'm going to gamble on this. I've never looked it up. I'm just going off memory, going back to kind of what Larry just said. Middle of maybe September 19 or 20, somewhere in there in 97. We have 2 home games against the Dodgers. We win on a
Roberto Hernandez night game.
Tuesday night.
And Brian Johnson, the day game.
And a Wednesday. And I want to know what the attendance was, Dodgers, and the next home game. Because we tied them for first.
Right.
When the Brian Johnson ball went out off Mark Guthrie.
Right.
Okay.
That was an amazing. I was watching those games in Boston. I couldn't believe it. I'm like, are you kidding me? I go to all these Giants games, and now I'm in Boston for these 2. But yeah, I remembered. I loved it. I stayed up because that game started it was 7:35 start West Coast. That was 10:35 East Coast. I'm like watching a game for the first time starting at 10:35, and I was so excited to see it. And Roberto Hernandez shut the door in that night game. I always loved the one thing I loved about Sabes too is he loved the double barrel closer. I love that. I love the.
Guys are on fumes near the end.
What's that, Rod Beck?
Guys are on fumes near the end.
Yeah.
Mark, talking about which game after the Dodgers or before?
Yeah. Give me the Dodger Giant attendance on the first game of that 2-game series.
Okay.
By the way, Mark Hope says the Godfather Ned is spelling it out clearly. Look at that.
See if it's giving me.
We got another one here from Mark Hope. Mark Hope is just absolutely emptying the clip. He says, Ned, I caught 4 balls at the stick, was just showing my daughter tonight. Ned, stay on the soapbox. We are better for it.
Mark, that's really not a big deal when you think about it. There may have only been 35 people there and 100 balls went in the seats.
I'll never forget. I went to one of the first games after the strike, and I caught a foul ball. And I've already caught like 3 or 4 foul balls at that point. And the usher came running down, and she's like, that was an amazing catch. And I'm like, what? It was not an amazing catch. It was just an ordinary catch. But they were in this mode of like, let's pump up the fans, right? Because it was after the strike. So I'm like, what? An amazing catch? She's like, oh, it was an incredible catch. I'm like, no, it wasn't. I've been going to games here forever. It was not an amazing catch. It was just a catch. Stop gaslighting me just because there was a strike. Yeah. But no, the Giants did not draw going into that Dodgers series against the Cardinals. They did not draw. It was 12,500. Then the Dodgers rolled in. There were 2 fat crowds, and then the crowds went back to being ordinary after, the next series. I mean, it was just the way it kind of went back then. They really supported Giants-Dodgers, but not a lot else. By the way, you know who's in the house tonight? Pablo Sandoval. Did you? Yeah. MF says, did Ned help scout Pablo?
Nope. I was still there, but I think Rick Ragazzo had a lot.
He was a catcher when they called him up, Not a great catcher, but a catcher.
Danny, are you looking for the?
Yeah, I'm trying to pull the box score. I see the results, but it's not giving me the attendance. Shoot.
Yeah, I can look it up.
Yeah, I can't seem to find I get in the results of the game, but not the attendance. You know what? While you're looking at, when I was talking about Shohei signing, I was also assuming that the Giants had enough players to sign him that he'd want to sign, that the youngsters that are coming up, plus a couple of the veterans, would be enough to attract him to sign. I don't think he would sign here if this team had no future. You know, I think they're starting to show with some of the younger guys, and if they can fill in with a couple of vets that are not huge contracts, that's what I was thinking. Not like, oh, he's just going to be the only guy, because and I think that's why it's such an important year that the Giants develop these guys and that they show that they are major league ready, and that they're kind of like Larry said, the 86 Giants when Robbie Thompson and Will Clark, or the 2000.
I've got it here.
8-9
Wait,
Giants.
No, that's, hold on a second.
Yeah, the 2008 Giants and 9 Giants, when they started bringing up, Kane and Lincecum, and then it was Bumgardner and Pablo and then Posey, having that young nucleus. That's what I'm seeing the Giants trying to accomplish. And if you can add a superstar to that, that's where I think the Giants would take off.
40,491. And it was not the next game. Basically, the Giants played the Dodgers game 152 and game 153. Giants won the night game 2-1. Giants won the day game 6-5. And to go to 84 and 69. Then the Giants played 4 in San Diego, and they beat them 3 out of 4. Then they played 2 in Colorado and split. The next home game was on the final series of the year. Friday night, 9/26, September 26, 97. And that day against the Padres on that Friday night, Giants won 17-4. And the crowd was 40,491.
Yeah, I think we clinched the next day. Well, maybe there was the game before that.
I'll tell you the game before that. The game before that was what I'm talking about. That was the Cardinal game.
Oh, yeah.
I was at this game. Let me get this one.
How many people?
Let me see. I'll give it to you in just a second. I clicked the wrong thing. Okay, hold on a second. Cardinals. There it is. Hold on. It was, yeah. I've had it right. The Giants Cardinal game, the day before that, the home game before the Dodger game, was a daytime game. Giants beat the Cardinals. And there was 12,000. 12,000. 7-6 Giants. Let me see. McGuire, I know, went deep in this game. Let me double check that. McGuire, yeah. McGuire hit a 16th home run in the third inning off Sean Estes. It was a solo shot. Bonds also went deep, his 33rd. Stan Javier went deep in that game. Yeah, but that ball that McGuire hit that day was a freaking moonshot. But there was 12,000 and change in the park. And the next home game was Giants Dodgers, and I'll tell you what those drew. Giants Dodgers, the 2-1 night game, drew 56,000 and change. And the day game, this is September 18th, 1997, drew 52,188.
How about that?
But you're also talking about a September day game with school back in. That's 52,000 in a midweek day game with school back in.
I had just been in San Francisco 2 or 3 years by then. And so I was asking somebody in the organization, why does that happen? Why do you get 12,000 against the Cardinals and 50-something? I know the rivalry. And the guy says, well, the people here, we're not sure if they love baseball, but we do know they hate the Dodgers.
It's the way it always went. It was the way it always went. The Giants would play games. The Giants, a big crowd for the Giants was 25,000.
Yeah.
In the summertime, they would have a big weekend series. Maybe they get 40. The Dodgers would roll in 50. 50,000.
I was there in 78 when Mike Ivey hit a grand slam off of, I think it was off Don Sutton, if I recall. But there was 56 or 57,000 in there. The place literally was shaking after Ivy hit that grand slam. The Giants were actually in the race in, August, and they kind of faded, but it was just such a big event because the Giants hadn't been good since 71, and so I was like 78. They're like, oh my goodness, the Giant, back then you had to win the division or that was it, and so they went from 71 to 97 when they won the division.
Yep.
Oh, I know. I mean, it was 27 years that the Giants had gone, between 62.
71 and 80, not 97. It was 71 and 87. They won
71 and 87, but it was 62 to 89.
Yeah, before they got in the World Series.
Before they won a pennant. Los is on with Danny.
Before we get to Los, the Brian Johnson home run game.
Yeah.
Game ahead of that were the two best regular season games I have ever been a part of it, as an executive in my career. The two
I was in Connecticut watching it. Unbelievable.
The best. Los D.
They were incredible games.
You pay attention. Sedini's. I used to do so many of Larry Krueger's KMBR shows at 7 or 8 o'clock during the week from that bar. And great people. Mark, staff, Anna, great people. Great people. So maybe I'll see you there sometime.
That 97 team, by the way, that night game. Do you remember who started that game? He went 7, and then they 2-inning save for Roberto Hernandez.
Who went? Terry Mulholland.
Kirk Reeder.
It
was Reeder against Chanho Park in the night game.
Yes.
Reeder went 7. Reeder was such a gamer. 7 innings, 4 hits, 1 run, 1 earned, walked 3, struck out 4. Roberto Hernandez came on 2 hitless innings, struck out a pair. Roberto Hernandez got his 3rd save. Giants won that game 2-1. Giants scored 2 in the first and Reeder made it stand up.
Bonds homered, didn't he?
Yeah, Bonds. Let's see. Mondesi hit one out in the 5th off Reeder, solo shot. Bonds hit his 34th in the first, a 2-run shot off Chanho.
Way up there in right center. Yep. Remember
that was and you guys really put together, you should give a little shout out to Dick Tidrow for that 97 white flag trade.
Dick Tidrow, genius. I miss him so much. Genius, especially with pitching. I was gone when they won those World Series, but you look at the bedrock of those World Series, and half of it was pitching.
Sports Illustrated did a whole thing after the 2012 World Series on Dick Tidrow, on how he was the key component to that whole team.
No
what do they call him? The Ninja? That was his nickname?
Yep.
I remember Dick Tidrow with the Cubs. Wasn't he? Was he a Cub?
Oh, yeah. I was with him with Chicago. Yeah.
Yeah. He was a Cub. He was a Yankee, right? Wasn't he a Yankee in the late 70s?
Cleveland Indians starting pitcher. Look up how many innings he threw as a starting pitcher. He'd have led all leagues at this stage if the game was the same game. He was in the 240, 260 range. Many years as a starting pitcher. Then he went to the Yankees, and he worked out of the pen with Goose and Sparky Lyle. A couple World Series teams there in the late 70s. Came to the Cubs, may have finished with the White Sox or the Mets. But, yeah, I mean, I knew him a long, long time. Always always had a different view on things that was that worked.
Quiet guy. I sat next to him at, in Tucson at a spring training game early in March one year in the 90s. And he had the Fu Manchu, he had a big Fu Manchu mustache, and big guy too.
Oh yeah.
And he had a look on his face like, don't mess with me. He had a kind of some people have a yes, like you can approach them. He had kind of a no, like don't approach me kind of a thing. But it seemed like he was a nice guy. Didn't seek out any media. I can't honestly ever say I can ever remember him being interviewed.
He didn't need it. He didn't like it. He didn't want to be a part of it. This guy, his rookie year, 237 innings. His second year, he started 40 games. No openers. He started 40 games.
Wow.
274 innings. And his third year, 209 innings. So this man pitched over 700 innings over 3 years.
It's crazy.
Oh, yeah. And he used to always look at me, and because I did all the contracts, and he'd go, what would I be making today if I did all that? And I said,
why was he so gifted, Ned, as far as pitching analysis? Because he was really, you guys had quite the group. I mean, not only do we don't talk about a lot of these guys that were incredible baseball people, yourself, Brian, Dick, but I remember doing a conversation. I don't know if it was on the radio or it might have just been around the cage, and somebody introduced me to Pat Dobson. And Pat Dobson was a tremendous asset. He was a borderline baseball genius. Another guy who was taken from us way too soon. But I can remember Dobson was a tremendous advanced scout, huh?
We had I think, the best 8 people collection I've ever been around. The best. Sabes, Dick Tidrow, myself in the front office, and our scouts of these were all here at the same time. Jimmy Fregosi,
former manager of the Angels.
Pat Dobson, Teddy Eulander.
Also taken from us too soon, right?
Paul Turco and Joe DiCarlo. Only Turk is still with us.
And where did they come from, Ned? Were they Yankee people that Brian brought from New York?
Turk and Sabes knew each other for a long time. DiCarlo he had upper and lower false teeth, and he left them in a hotel during winter ball and went like 6 years without teeth, And when Brian and Amanda got married, we were all in Tampa for it. I had just taken a Dodger job, and we looked at Joe, and Joe called us out. He said, I have a surprise for you. So we get to the wedding, and we all see Joe, and he's just kind of looking at us, nodding. And then he breaks into this big smile with a mouthful of teeth.
That's awesome.
But Sabes had and I didn't really know Sabes at this time, but I've heard the stories. Sabes had such an appetite for learning and for being in the game and for seeking out wisdom. So many people refuse to seek out wisdom in life. And he would be up in New York. He started out as a Florida area scout. He would be up in New York from time to time, and maybe it started to get more involved in amateur scouting. And he would stay at Joe's house. Joe lived across the George Washington Bridge. And he said they would stay up. Joe's wife would go to sleep. His son would go to sleep. And they would sit up in the living room talking until 4 or 5 in the morning, night after night. And Sabes would fall asleep on the couch. The next day they would do it again. Go to a game, amateur game, come back and talk. I have so many Joe DiCarlo stories that are hysterical. But he was brilliant in his own way. And then Fregosi, great manager. He
had a presence too.
Oh gosh, all these guys. And what they were really good at, they all had different personalities, but they had the common trait of knowing who could and who couldn't. and being decisive in what they said. And there were a couple times we would be in organizational meetings in November, staying in Scottsdale over at the old hotel. I forget the name of it now, an Indian school. It was a big hangout back in the day. And we would go over our team, and at the end, Peter would come in the last day. We talk about budget. And we'd always tell Fregosi and Dobson, you guys are on. And they would stand up at the board and they would go through the team and they would tell Peter and maybe Larry, if we don't have a payroll of this, we have no chance. We need these guys. We got to re-sign these guys. And this team will have a chance to win. But the payroll can't be what you think it might be. And they sold them all the time, and ownership was on board. You look it up. We won a lot of games. We won a lot of games from 97 to about 04-ish. And then they turned it on again in 10, 12, and 14.
I'll tell you, of all the moves that you guys ever made, the one that I thought was the best move, and you may have your own thoughts on this one, but I thought it was the right move at the right time, and the way the club responded was just absolutely amazing. It was, do you want to guess what move I'm going to say? Do you know? I may have already said this to you before.
Go for it.
July 28th, 2002. Sabes trades Ryan Moe and Felix Diaz. And Felix Diaz had a good arm. I'll give him, it wasn't like he was a scrub. He had a good arm. Felix Diaz, Ryan Moe to the Chi Sox for Kenny Lofton. And I'm just looking at the 2002 almanac. The Giants went on from that point and scored ridiculous amounts of runs. I mean, this guy, I think the trade was made on the 28th. You guys were playing the Dodgers. I think his first game was in Philly. Giants put up 10 runs that day, beat Philly 10-3. And I think the Giants went from averaging like 4 runs a game to averaging 6 runs a game. You guys finished absolutely in fuego with Lofton at the top of the lineup. He was the perfect addition at the perfect time for a team that needed ignition. You guys had not had a leadoff hitter. You had a killer middle of the lineup, but you didn't have that ignition. He was the ignition. And I can still remember I was standing behind the backstop when David Bell was on second base, NLCS, Steve Klein, who I also love, great guy, longtime Giant coach after that. Kleiner's on the mound. La Russa goes and puts him out there. Kenny Lofton's in the on-deck circle. The music is blaring. And I look over at Kenny, and they gave us the field mics because they wanted us, this is the 9th inning. If the Giants win this game, they clinch the pennant. And so I'm right behind the glass there, and I got the field mics. And me and Tony Ryan, and I point to Tony, and I go, look at Lofton. And he's in the on-deck circle, and he's literally dancing back and forth, but he's keeping loose. And I'm like, oh, this guy's coming through, man. This guy's coming through. 3 pitches later, line drive to the outfield. Bell slides in at home plate. And, I can still remember Krueg on the Kipe on the call, and Krueg jumped in. We're going. It was a great moment. Giants over Cardinals.
That was such a good. I'm going to add 2 little things to it. I think if you look up game 1 of that NLCS, we're in St. Louis. And I think he leads off with a home run.
Yeah.
St. Louis, full of red, vibrant.
Silenced.
And quiet. Now, I want to take you back to your scenario in game 5. Because that was game 5.
Right.
We lose that game. Where do we got to win another one?
St. Louis.
We had to win that game because there was no telling what we were going to be able to do back in St. Louis. The greatest trait I can give a player, I can give to Kenny Lofton. And I signed him in LA a couple of years later. I don't know anybody who would compete as hard as Reeder. Woody was the all-time compete. Stuff versus heart. Heart overmatched the stuff 100-1. Kenny Lofton, and I talked about it all the time with my Dodger teams, and I talked about it a little bit tonight earlier. He had fierceness to him. He had no fear. And he played the game with a ferocity, without power, but with a ferocity to beat you. And that's not saying other players didn't play to win. But what we needed was not only a leadoff hitter, but his attitude and his swagger and his fierceness fueled the entire club, because we had a lot of guys who were close to that, but we didn't necessarily have anybody like him to make everybody else be able to step up their game. And that was huge. That was huge. That is probably as good a deal as we made. Hang on, I got two cats here trying to get in here.
They're fighting. No, seriously, that was a spectacular deal, because the Giants, the Giants had an incredible middle of the lineup. But in 2002, you'd added Reggie Sanders, and there was it was a little bit more of a top to bottom lineup. The lineup was so good that David Bell, I believe in the playoffs, hit like 8th.
Yeah.
I mean, he was an unbelievable player. But Kenny was that ignition. I thought that was the perfect trade at the perfect time for the perfect guy. And Dusty put him out there. It wasn't like, okay, we're going with Marvin. No, it was like, hey, you know what? We're going to go with Kenny. And man, that was a terrific. That was an impactful deal, man. That was spectacular.
One more insight into Kenny. Grew up in, as Lou here aptly says, Arizona hoopster and U of A. He grew up in Gary, Indiana.
Tough place.
And he played hard. He played, as I said, had a fierceness to him. So I signed him in 2006, my first year in LA, to bring the same thing. The team we had inherited lost 91 games, believe it or not. Inherited that team, had to change it. Billy Miller, Nomar, Rafi for Kyle, and Kenny. And we get beat. We go from last to first. And we win the West, tie San Diego, win the West, play the Mets in the division series and get swept. We didn't have enough to compete with that team. And as I go around the clubhouse at the end of the night, after we've lost the third game and we've been swept out, Kenny's got his head in the locker. Other people are looking towards each other and, saying, hey, good job, good work, all that. And I tap Kenny on the shoulder and he won't look. And I go, Kenny. And he looks up and he's full of tears. And he goes, I let you down, boss. I let you down. I said, Kenny, we ain't even close to this without you. But there was a specialness to him that was it was unique in so many ways. What he brought to a team and what he brought on a day in, day out basis. That's a long time ago now. It's like 17 years ago.
Great competitor. Competitor.
And you're talking about 2002. I mean, that's 21 years ago. But it's still things that are vivid in my mind as to what Kenny Lofton's all about.
One last thought on that 2006 team. In 2006, I was bitter at the Giants. I had left KBR. I was bitter. And I'm watching, it's September, late September, 2006. And a buddy of mine's like, hey, I'll come over tonight. He was in town. He's like, I'll come over. We'll go get a few beers and we'll go watch the game. And we went to the sports bar and the Dodger game was on. And he's like, he goes, I'm thinking about betting the Dodgers. I'm like, you know what? I'm so pissed off at the Giants right now. I think I'm going to bet the Dodgers as well. So we wind up putting a pretty sizable bet on the Dodgers. We're in this bar. I'll never forget this. 9th inning. Now I'm pissed because I bet on the team that I hate. And I'm down 9-5. And it's the 9th. And here comes Jeff Kent. And he hits one out.
Oh, gosh, not the 4 home run game.
Now it's 9-6. JD Drew comes up. He hits one out. Now it's 9-7.
Oh, gosh, I remember this.
Russell Martin comes up. Hits one out. Marlon Anderson comes up. He hits one out. It was an amazing 4 consecutive home run game. 9-5, bottom of the 9th. 4 consecutive bombs to tie the game. San Diego then scores. San Diego scores a run in the top of the 10th.
Yep. And then what happens?
No
Kenny
more.
Lofton gets on.
Right. Lofton gets on.
And
no more. Walk-off, 2-run jack.
Yep.
11-10 Dodgers. One of the most amazing games I've ever seen.
That Brian Johnson game, like out of 9,000, 1 and 2.
That was amazing. I only bet on the Dodgers.
What, Larry?
What's that? I won.
I bet on the Dodgers one time to win, and it was to hedge my bet. I had the playoff tickets in 21, and it was like, if the Giants won, okay, I could keep selling my tickets against the Braves. So I'm like, oh, shoot, if they lose, I won't make any more money. So I bet to win $1,000 on the Dodgers. And I was like, it was the worst 1,000 I'd ever won, because I was like, I don't want to win this money, because I figured if I lost it, I'd make it up against the Braves, because I would be selling these tickets, for almost $1,000 a piece. And because I was
doesn't show much confidence on your part.
Well, it was a hedge. It was a hedge bet. It was all about the financial move, because I wasn't going to the games. I was away in Idaho at the time, so I was like, dang it, but what the heck, I did it. I got some money out of it, but I would have been really happy to lose, to have lost that money, because then I would have been able to, my Giants would have won, and I would have been able to make the money up in the next series. So, but that was it. That was my only time.
Mark Hope says, I know Peter and Mark from Sedini's. Look at that. Mark Hope emptying the clip. Ned, Danny, we'll call it here. It's 12:10 in the morning.
I got to run over to my channel. I got crew. We scheduled it. We kept pushing it back, so we're gonna get it going, and we're not gonna go long, but we're gonna keep our promise. Said we'd come back. So
we gotta get Ned over to Danny's channel at some point.
Yeah, after the All-Star break, I want to have you on and do a little discussion with the trades and stuff. Just talking about
for both of your edification, from the 17th of July to the 31st, I'll be out.
Okay, it'll be before the 17th. Yeah.
For both of you, I'd like to see it both before I take a little time.
All right.
We'll do it.
Awesome.
Always Danny, I'll let you jet Danny over back to your channel. Thanks for your time, Danny.
Yeah. Anybody want to come over? We're going to still
send
talk
me a link.
Giants.
I'll come over.
NorCal Sports Network. We'll see you.
All
Thanks,
right.
Ned. Thanks, Larry. See you.
All right. There you go.
All right,
Ned, awesome stuff, man. Awesome stuff. We love rapping with you. Let me just double check. I've got everybody here in the starred chats, because man, there has been just tons of people with tons of questions. There was one in here.
Let me one more. We'll bail after that.
Yeah, let's see. Where do we have? Well, here we go. This might be too hard of a question. Manny Machado. I don't think it's the actual Manny Machado, but he says, Ned, what hitter would you trade for to make the offense better? Is there a hitter out there? The Giants need a second baseman who can hit. I kind of like the guy who played in Colorado tonight, McMahon. He's got 14 or 15 jacks. He hit one out tonight, opposite field. I think McMahon's a solid player. He can play a little second, a little third.
Yep.
But they could use a second baseman who can swing it, or they could use an outfielder. I'll tell you the guy that I would try to pick off if I were the Giants. And you mentioned it a few weeks ago when we had John. You said, some guys are not meant to play in LA. In other words, you might have a big time prospect, but maybe you don't think he's going to ultimately amount to much. And you also always have to factor in like how they're rated compared to by others, so Baseball America, MLB Pipeline, so on and so forth, as opposed to how you have them rated. I look at Marco Luciano as a guy who is a really highly rated guy, and he's got a lot of bat speed, but he's not a shortstop, and I don't even think he's a third baseman. You got Casey Schmidt here. I think he's a left fielder with a lot of bat speed. Now, that has value, but it doesn't have the kind of value that it would have if he stayed at short or played third. I would move Marco Luciano to the Padres as the centerpiece if I could get Juan Soto. Why? Because here would be my strategy, and tell me what you think of this strategy. You trade Luciano. I mean, the Padres already are leverage beat to the hilt. They're going nowhere. You trade Luciano in a package to San Diego for Soto. You use Soto's acquisition and your burgeoning farm system to make the best pitch you can that you can be a competitive team to Shohei. And then after you get Shohei signed, maybe you can then get Soto to sign long-term because now, maybe he's happy too. Soto to help get Otani to then try to re-sign Soto. But I'm a big fan of Juan Soto. There's something about San Diego that's wrong. They got the wrong mix there. I don't like taking too many chances on mediocre guys. Luciano, I think, has a lot of value. What do you think of a Luciano package to San Diego for Soto? Do you like Soto?
I like Soto.
It's going to take more than that, of course, but
I'm trying to figure out.
You got him. You'd have him for all this year and all next year, and then he's a free agent.
Making $120 million probably.
Yeah, but what are the chances that you're going to land Otani, who's living in Southern Cal, plays for the Angels, has the Dodgers sitting right there, who can be a primary bidder? I would say the Giants have no more than a 5 to 10% chance of landing Shohei anyway. And if you could get Soto, in a lot of ways, you could go for it this year, maybe get a little momentum with playoffs. I think Luciano is going to be a 25 home run, 250 hitting corner outfielder. I don't see super special. I love the bat. I love the bat speed. But, I mean, the Giants moved Alexander Canario a couple years ago to the Cubs in the Chris Bryant trade. He's got as good or better bat speed, too, and he's not doing much. Bat speed doesn't solve everything. A lot of scouts get intrigued by bat speed. A lot of people love, look at the bat speed on this guy.
I got 1 minute to sum this up for you.
Okay.
Nothing's ever impossible. That's probably as close to impossible as you could get. San Diego would be admitting they made a huge mistake. Inside the division, they'd be admitting this.
Right.
And they'd be in another rebuild, so to speak. They gave up so much for AJ Preller to do a deal involving Juan Soto. He's going to have to
get something.
He's going to have to get almost the same cost Anaheim would have to get for Otani. Because his cost is already established. What he gave up is what the cost is. With less time on the contract. So I don't know that that's happening.
Last question. You know LA better than anybody, probably. If they are going to go get a big-time player at the deadline, Bobby Miller's already up. Who's the centerpiece of their move? Diego Cartaya? Is it Bush? Is it Dalton Rushing? They already promoted Emmett Sheehan. He's up.
It may be Sheehan and maybe Cartaya. I don't see those guys play.
Yeah.
I don't see their minor leaguers play. Sheehan has been impressive. He's got a good way about him. Comes out of nowhere, really. Boston College to 6th round, I think. What they've done a little bit is what they've done for decades they promote and they have people promoting their prospects at such a high level that they sell for more. It reminds me of Greg Brock, Mike Marshall, and Franklin Stubbs, all good players. When they were sitting in Albuquerque or wherever they were at in AAA, you thought they were bringing up Garvey and Say and Lopes, and those guys were good players, but they weren't. Mike Marshall was probably the best of the group, but you're talking about just players.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with just players, but not superstar players. So, Cartaya got a lot of pluses to him. When's the last big game he played in?
Yeah, exactly.
What's the major leagues going to do to him? Catching is a big job. Ask Joey Bart.
Right.
Catching's a big gig. So I don't really know, what they would have to do it. They've done a great job of trading. We had the question from Manny Machado a little while ago.
Right.
Manny Machado didn't cost him 5 players, I think. Not sure any of those guys are stars, good players in there. So thanks, Mark Hope. Good job tonight.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Hey, good to wrap with you. Always great to talk baseball with you. We'll do it again shortly, and have a phenomenal night. You're 2 hours and 36 minutes. I've asked questions.
That's longer than a big league game now.
Yeah, I know. Seriously. By the way, I feel cheated sometimes in these games. I'll look up and it'll be like the 7th, and the game started at 7 or something like that, and it's like 8:30, and I'm like, really? And then it always seems to slows down a little bit at that point. But some of these, I know it's good for everybody who's making money. I'm just wondering about the fan who's there and getting the experience. It's like, the old days, you might go out in the middle of the game and get a beer or a hot dog or something. You miss maybe a half inning. You didn't care because it was like the game was going to go on. Now, man, it's like, hurry up. I got to get back. I don't know.
I would have kept doing TV.
I don't know if I'd leave my seats.
Getting out of the studio at 11:30 midnight. Come on. Get to the 7th inning and the team coming in with their bullpen to face the Dodgers. Can't throw a strike, can't get anybody out, walking around the mound, hoping the hitter goes back in the dugout out of boredom. That was too much.
Where were you for those 4? Where were you for those 4 bombs, by the way? 96.
What?
All right, 2006. Where were you exactly?
I was up in the GM booth. It was a Monday game. It was
were you sitting by yourself?
Series. No, I had a couple people. I probably had Kim in there and a couple other people, and I was aggravated. I didn't say anything the entire night. We had fought back to get within distance of San Diego, and I won't mention the starting pitcher that night. People have to look it up. Gave up a bunch of runs in the top of the first, put us behind, and we fought back, and then more guys gave up runs, and I was disappointed in how hard the team had played and how much we got let down that night. And then as that inning unfolded, I was at peace with the team. I thought, I'll always care how the season goes, but nobody can deny how hard this group fought back through the adversity of the first part of that game. And then we give up another run in the 10th. And I'm thinking, oh, well, at least we gave it a battle. And then Kenny gets on and Gnomes hits it out.
Wow.
And that really was, it had the same impact on us that it probably had, as I think about it today, it was very similar to the Brian Johnson game, where you needed to win the game to come back, to stay in it. Giants of 96, awful. Dodgers of 05, awful. New team, new leadership, starting to gel. But do you have enough to get to the end? And both those games showed me, and I was blessed to be a part of both of them, that we did have enough and that we had learned enough to get to that point in the season. And both those teams won divisions.
I have
And
a
both those
special.
teams lost 90-plus games the year before. Think about how difficult that is.
Yeah, that's an incredible turnaround.
Yep.
I have a special place in my heart for Nomar.
Yep.
So my good friend Michael Madden down in Southern California, I'm telling him my this is years ago. My daughter's now in nursing school, so she's 23. But this was years ago. She was like 8, 9, and she loved soccer. She was really good at soccer. Talking to Michael Madden, my good friend down in LA, and he said, I was telling him, I gotta go, Michael. I'm gotta go to my little girl's soccer game. She really loves soccer. And he's like, give me your address. I'm going to a dinner party tonight, and I got something for you. Give me your address. So I gave him my address, and he calls me the next day, and he's like, hey, remember I told you I was going to a dinner party last night? I'm like, yeah. He's like, I went to a dinner party at Nomar's house with my niece. My niece is Mia Hamm. And he sends me a autographed picture of Mia Hamm. Dear Anna, keep fighting the good fight on the soccer field, on the soccer pitch. Your friend, Mia Hamm. And I gave that to my daughter for Christmas. She was like, she could not believe it. Nomar and Mia Hamm. Nomar's class and Mia Hamm, what she's done for little girls.
Oh, gosh.
And she's a tremendous person.
I have so much respect and affection for the family. Signed Nomar, brought him back to LA where he grew up after the Boston and then a little trade to the Cubs. You've been around the game a long time. You talk to people every day. And then there's some people who teach you stuff you never knew. And of all the guys I worked with, then I worked with a lot of great people. Nomar and Oral Hershiser could teach me about hitting and about pitching and just how they think about it and go about it is unique. How many players have I talked to? 1,000? I don't know. 40 years, probably 1,000. And you know why they were good. You know why Oral won the Cy Young and had 50-some scoreless innings in a row.
He was good with the Giants. He was good with the Giants in '98.
Yes. And I've known him since then. And, we brought him. I mean, he was near the end of his career, but we also knew that he could help the rest of the staff in conversation. Kind of like how I got Maddox to LA twice. Greg wasn't what he was when he was winning Cy Youngs, but he knew more than anybody. And so him sitting next to a young Kershaw, what value did that have?
Oh, amazing.
But Gnomes is, one of the smartest hitters I've ever been around. And I've been to one Dodger game this year, and I stopped at the booth to see him and John Hartung. And this is going to sound weird, I guess, perhaps, and I don't want the Giants fans to take this the wrong way. And part of it was Mia Hamm, too. The first player I ever signed that I was in awe of, that I thought, oh my gosh, I can't believe I just signed this guy, was Andre Dawson.
The Hawk.
And then the second one, Mia and Nomar invited him to the office. I invited him to spend a couple hours, get to know them, let them know what I was all about. I had just been there a couple weeks. And in fact, I think I signed him and Kenny Lofton on back-to-back days. Another guy we talked about tonight. And just sitting there in the room with these two people. And, Mia's so good, but also kind of shy. Not, outgoing when it's comfortable, but, not looking for the spotlight. And had, the brightest spotlights on her for a long, long time because of how great a player she is in person. And when I signed I signed for, I think, just 1 year. It was a 1-year deal. And I remember signing him and thinking, this is like the Hawk. This is a player and his family that I'm taken by this a little bit. This is pretty good. And I've said it all the time. And again, I don't mean to demean anybody or discount anybody. The greatest player wife I've ever known is Carla Reeder.
Sweet lady. Very sweet lady.
Just solid, and so together.
Yeah, love her. She's great.
And the greatest parents I've ever met of a player, and granted I haven't met everybody's parents, are Nomar's mom and dad.
Really?
Oh yeah. And I when I was doing TV, I would run into his dad once in a while and we'd stand and talk. And I mean, just, hardworking people that, made ends meet and just solid people. And, Nomar sent me a great Father's Day note this a couple of weeks ago. And I sent him one back and I says, and you need to tell Ramon, that's his dad. Like Nomar's Ramon spelled backwards, his dad's name. You need to tell Ramon, I send my best and my blessings to you for all the goodness that he's brought. It's a special stuff. So
I'll tell you
over there. I don't want to demean anybody, but it's
it's a great story. I'll finish with this one. Maybe the best weekend I've ever had in my media career was 1998. Cambiar says, you know what? You're going to go with the Giants. You're going to fly on the team charter. You're going to go down to San Diego. It was a 4-game series. You remember how good they were in 98. It was right around right around this time of year. There was a 4th of July fireworks show. I think the Padres maybe either swept the series or took 3 out of 4. Dusty was so pissed. He was like, let's get out of here as fast as we possibly can on Sunday. But I had you on the show on Saturday. I don't know if you remember being there, but you joined us on the show. Townsend was back in the studio. I go Friday to interview some players for the weekend show, and I go into the Padres clubhouse, and Ricky Henderson is there with Tony Gwynn. I asked Tony Gwynn if he would do an interview with me, and he's like, and really high pitch. He's like, I don't got time right now. But he's like, if you could show up tomorrow morning at 7:00 in the morning, I'll do an interview with you. So I didn't. And then he ran off with the bat to take some pregame BP. And I'm standing there and I'm looking around going, did he mean that? And Ricky Henderson looks at me and he's like, are you going to show up tomorrow at 7:30? Because he's going to. I said, I thought maybe he was blowing me off. He's like, no, Tony doesn't blow anybody off. He'll be here at 7:00 or 7:30. Just like he said, you better show up. So I show up at 7:30 in the morning, Jack Murphy, barely can even get in the stadium. I go into the clubhouse. It's dark. There's nobody there. And all of a sudden I see a light at the end of the thing, and there's a guy sitting in the room. And I go, I'm supposed to meet Tony Gwynn here. And he's like, who are you? I'm like, Larry Krueger, Cambiar. And he's like, oh, yeah. He told me to send you out to home plate. I said, really? So I go out to home plate, empty stadium.
Oh my gosh.
I get out to home plate. It's Greg Vaughn and Gwynn hitting shot after shot after shot off a tee. Okay. He goes, we just got 5 more minutes and then I'll be with you. So does the tee work with Greg Vaughn. I shake both their hands. Tony sits down, gives me 20 minutes that I played later that day. 20 minutes with Tony Gwynn. Okay. I had you on that Saturday, and then I had 20 minutes with Tony Gwynn. Now the Giants lose 3 out of 4. This was a great Padre team that had Caminiti and Kevin Brown and Towers loaded. Yeah, they went to the World Series. Yeah. Towers loaded up. That team was stacked. They were really, really good. But you guys were good too. 98. You guys lost to Traxel, I believe, in the 1-game playoff at Wrigley.
163. Yep.
Yeah. But anyway, so we get on the plane, and I'm helping Raul Velez load up all the broadcast stuff, and I'm like one of the last people on the entire plane. And I'm looking around. There's not too many seats, and there's a lot of players have their own row and this and that. And Oral Hershiser goes, "Hey, kid, there's a seat over here next to me." And I'm looking, and I'm like, okay. So I go, and he's like, I like to sit on the aisle, so you can have the window. So it's me on the window and Oral on the aisle. And it's a short flight, San Diego to San Francisco, an hour-long flight. The entire hour, I thought he didn't want to talk or anything. He winds up asking me about my family, talking about the game, talking about, I started asking him about 88, all this. So, that was one of the most incredible weekends, just to be, first of all, that hotel in San Diego where you guys stayed was amazing. And then to be at all 4 of those games was incredible. But then to get this Tony Gwynn interview, we had a great interview of you with me and Chris Townsend. And then I sat on the plane next to Oral Hershiser, and he talked ball and life for an hour. And I remember walking in from the airport, and Michael Jordan is right as I'm walking in. I turn on the TV. Michael Jordan's pushing off Brian Russell to hit that game winner to beat Utah in the finals. I guess it must have been late June, but or it had to be early. I guess it was June, but an incredible weekend, an absolutely incredible weekend. And when I think about it, Oral Hershiser, one of the great pitchers of the era, was incredibly generous with his time. And then Tony Gwynn, I thought was putting me on, instead gave me a 20-minute uninterrupted interview. Amazing. Really an amazing weekend. Absolutely. It stayed with me. I remember thinking, what a year that was.
You could go a whole year without having
at
least 2 of those guys talk to you.
Yeah. Unbelievable stuff. Ned, awesome stuff, man. We really appreciated it. We'll do it again soon. Lou Marston says, my God, it's 12:30 and there's still 100 people on the show. Well done, Larry, and congrats. 105, Lou. There have been people who have come since in the last couple of minutes. But yeah, great stuff. Ned, thanks for your time. Have a phenomenal night, and we'll hook up again in a few weeks.
You got it, buddy. All the best.
All the best to you. The great Ned Colletti. What a show. What a show. Mark Hope says Ned is the man. It's 12:35. I know. By the way, tomorrow morning at 8 a.m., the coach is going to be in the house, and we're going to talk Niners. Don't miss it. I'm going to sleep fast and get up early tomorrow morning for the coach. 8 a.m. West Coast time, we're going to talk Niners. Also tomorrow on the channel, Marcelino McCrary Ball, 49er linebacker, is going to join me, and I think we're probably going to tape it. So we probably won't wind up playing it tomorrow, but look for that in the next 2 or 3 days for sure. We're going to have that. Marcelino is one of my favorites. He's going to ball out this year. He's a tremendous player. Lou Marston says, Larry, and this is after a loss. Imagine if the Giants win. I know. Well, I'll say this. Hopefully the Giants do make some trades, and hopefully the Giants do have they're relevant in August and September, because we'll do tons of shows like this. I'll do this all day and all night. We'll talk Giants. We'll talk baseball. We'll get Ned on. We'll bring Danny over from his channel. I'll get Matt Chisholm to get us a couple players. So awesome stuff. Chardall in the house says, Larry, you're the OG. I don't know about that, but we had a lot of fun tonight. All right, let's thank our sponsors, Marin Autoglass, marinautoglass.com, 415-883-3030. You need a new windshield. When I need a new windshield, I only go to Marin Autoglass, marinautoglass.com, brand new sponsor of the Krueg Show. We got a couple new sponsors that we're going to introduce next week, believe it or not. Some great stuff happening here on the Krueg Show. Let's also thank our sponsor, Pig and a Pickle, best barbecue in Northern California. Check them out in Emeryville and Corte Madera. They're open 7 days a week in Marin from 11 a.m. to 8 p.m. every day, or until they run out. And then in Emeryville, they're open Wednesday through Sunday. Pig and a Pickle, the best barbecue in all of Northern California. A couple last thoughts after this, but first let's play this from Pig and a Pickle.
So New York Style Sausage was started over 70 years ago. We are the largest producer of fresh Italian sausage on the West Coast.
What makes our sausage in New York style is really the recipe came from back east, from New York, from Connecticut.
If you look at all of our labels, there's maximum 4 or 5 ingredients, which we're really proud of.
There's no preservatives, no MSG, fresh in, fresh out.
The pork comes in fresh, goes out fresh. There's never any freezing throughout the process. We've always used fine quality cuts. We're never going to deter from that. It's one of the reasons why our sausage is so good. I guarantee you put our sausage up against anybody else's from a flavor standpoint, no one will beat it, hands down.
And do yourself a favor and do me a favor. Go buy a package of the New York style Italian sausage. Guaranteed you will love it. Guaranteed.
All right, coming down the home stretch on the Krueg Show, Lou Marston says Sunday and family dinner. Lou, good to see you, buddy. Thanks for jumping in on the Krueg Show tonight. I know you're a big Giants fan. Lou and I go way back. I mean, way back, like Cub Scouts way back. It's Pack 351, Wayne Schaefer, Cub Scout baseball. I was like in the 2nd grade. Lou was probably like in the 6th grade, something like that. Good memories, though. Lou, say hi to Sheldon, say hi to Marlena, say hi to all the Marstons. Give my love. All right, great show tonight. Rockies beat the Giants 5-2. So it wasn't a great baseball game. What did the Giants do? Stripling doesn't look like he's got much. He's got a 6-point. Taylor Rogers walked guys out of the pen, then Tyler Rogers gave up the big bomb. At least Lavera looked pretty good at the end. But yeah, not a good game for the Giants. Crawford with the only accounted for all the offense with a 2-run bomb. You get beat up by Gomber. Gomber has a 6.40 ERA, and they made him look good tonight. 6 innings, 2 earned runs against Gomber. And then Bard shut the door in the 9th. Bard's good. I wouldn't mind having Bard, 1.76 ERA. In fact, if Colorado wants to send Bard and McMahon over, if I'm Farhan, that I might want to start my trade season with those two guys. Give me Bard and give me McMahon. McMahon hit a nice 2-run Oppo bomb tonight as well. So Giants lose. They're back at it. Game 2 tomorrow. Connor Siebold against Ryan Walker, who is kind of omnipresent. He'll be an opener. Warriors also went tonight, by the way, in the Summer League. They lose to the Lakers 103-96. Guy Santos with 25 for Golden State. Lester Quinones, 15. He looks pretty good, Quinones. And Pajemski, the rookie, didn't have a great shooting night, 3 of 10. He took 4 threes, only made 1, 9 points, but 11 rebounds. That kid can flat out rebound. Wow. That guy can really rebound. Average almost 9 boards a game in the WCC, co-WCC Player of the Year with Drew Timme. 9, 11, and 2 assists for Pajemski. Javon Johnson with 12 off the bench. Reggie Perry had 11 and 11 off the bench for Golden State. Who was the big scorer for the Lakers? Looks like Max Christie had 22 for Max Christie. So Warriors in Vegas. Now we're also trying to chase down Larry Harris to talk a little bit about Golden State and the offseason that has been thus far. Trying to do that Monday morning. Would love to have Larry Harris on the show. We're reaching out to Ray Ritter about trying to get Larry Monday morning on the Krueg show. So good stuff. Thanks to Ned. Thanks to Danny. Thanks to all of you. Thanks to the sponsors. Oh, where are we on the total subs list? We're closing in on 20,000 subs, which is an amazing thing if you think about it. We've only been doing this for a little bit over a year. The channel, as we speak, 19,753 subs. So if you're in the chat right now, we got 90 people in the chat at 12:45 in the morning. Still going strong. 19,753. If you've yet to subscribe to the channel, please do. Hit that notification bell. Every time we go live, you'll get a little notification. It doesn't cost any money. Also, go to kruegshow.com if you want to buy any merchandise. And we do individual customized videos to everybody who buys merchandise. Digital Drew out in Chicago bought some stuff today. I saw that. He bought a T-shirt. And we really appreciate that. It obviously helps the channel, helps me quite a bit. Lou Marson says 5 total hits. Pathetic at home. Yeah, that is pathetic. 5 hits, 1 extra base hit. Oh, man. Well, the best part about baseball is go get them tomorrow, right? There's another one coming up tomorrow. Join me at 8 a.m. The coach will be here. We'll talk Niners. Have a great night, everybody. Peace.
Yeah, never met a man I've been scared of. Careful, you won't get exactly what you asked for. Here for whatever you bring me, get in hand.